This is Beach Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Hello, America, and welcome to the #1 radio station in all of Fort Myers Beach. Beach Talk Radio. Here are your hosts, Kim and Ed Ryan.
And she hates when I do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Oh, no. I'm supposed to applaud when I do that. We do have a live audience here at La Ola on a Tuesday morning. Thank you all for coming out. I wish we weren't here today for the 6-month anniversary of Hurricane Ian. Joe Orlandini is our first guest. And for anybody that doesn't know, that voice on the introduction that we just played was Gene. He was the first person that we ever met at table 23 at Pete's Timeout, which is no longer there. And we're going to have the former owners of Pete's Timeout. And that's how we started the show and why we started the show, because Gene used to tell these great stories about coming down to Fort Myers Beach for decades with his wife. And then we just started tape recording his stories. And then the first guest we had on was Jackie from the Chamber of Commerce. And then it just took off from there. And 5 years later, here we are back in Times Square at La Ola. And we're talking about a hurricane that totally destroyed Fort Myers Beach. And the weather channels from every network are out here today. Dan Allers, the mayor, is right over here in Times Square doing a second shot with Wink. They had Fox weather down here earlier. There was another TV station over at the Pink Shell, one also over at Town Hall. So, Joe, you've been a resident of Fort Myers Beach for a few years. Tell everybody how long you've been here.
20 years.
20 years. And what street do you live on? And take us through the experience you went through 6 months ago.
I live on Palermo Circle, and it was quite the interesting morning. I had a phone call from a partner investor the night before the storm, and I think we all assumed that the storm was going to pass us by, is what we assumed. So this partner had been watching the weather quite intensely, and he's a pretty intuitive guy and got into watching the weather for probably the last 2 months. So he decided to call me that evening and says, Joe, you're getting a direct hit. And I disagreed with him. And I said, no, it's going to pass us. It's going to pass us. We're not getting a direct hit. He says, no, you're getting a direct hit. So he got me worked up that evening, and I came onto the island, I want to say at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I decided to get a little more aggressive about moving things around and getting prepared. And I realized that everyone around me was not as prepared as we probably should have been if it's going to be a direct hit.
You mean everybody around your neighborhood there?
Everybody.
Yeah.
And so I started moving things, and I got a hold of a few of the neighbors, got into their garages and moved some things that I could get moved quickly, and getting people awake to open garage doors if they could still. And I think the last thing I moved was a golf cart, and I put it up into the second floor of a house I have under construction. And it decided that it was time to actually move my forklift off the island. And I decided to come down Estero, and I got to about Times Square. And for some reason, at the bottom of the bridge, there seems to be an extra low spot. And you don't notice it until it's full of water. And it was so high that I could not get my forklift from in front of the Margaritaville up to the bridge. So I decided to turn around, and I actually have a video of that where I was driving the forklift. It's about 1 hour from now. I have that video exactly 6 months ago. So I went back to Palermo and parked my forklift, and I started walking back to the house, and I saw the water coming up over the seawalls. And
how vicious did the water look? Like, you hear about storm surge, and people on Fort Myers Beach had heard the threat of storm surge before, but it never really happened. Like, I think the last storm, there was warnings about the storm surge, but it almost was like the water went out and never came back in during that storm. And so it was almost like a false sense of security that, okay, yeah, we've heard that. But you don't really realize that the fire chief at the time said to me, if the prediction comes through about the storm surge, the Gulf is going to connect with the Back Bay. And when you hear somebody say that, you don't really take it seriously, because it doesn't compute that water all the way out there can come all the way in and connect.
There's no way you could have ever, I think, imagined that much water could have come in on the island. When I came out at about 9:30, I walked out to where the cottage was and where the parking lot is, what is that, Wasting Away parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at the water, and the waves, it literally had to be 5-6 feet higher than the ground I'm standing on, but it's not actually coming in yet.
Okay.
I couldn't quite grasp.
Yeah.
I realized it's 9:30. The storm is intended to be here at 2:30 as the peak. I realized, as my partner in my head, he's saying, "No, you're getting a direct hit." I realize how weak we are.
How many people stayed on your street there? It wasn't just you.
No, I had, let's see, we had probably 6 or 7 houses full of people.
And not all of them were built to code.
No.
So what did you do?
Well,
how did they get to safety?
I had a couple people call me on the street and said, "Hey, if the water does come up, we're going to go into one of your new houses." Of course, I said, absolutely. I left the doors open.
Some were 3 stories.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been a routine that I've been accommodating to the neighbors, and if they needed it, and we haven't used it in the past, or we've used it, but it hasn't been obviously in this situation.
Sure.
So in this case, they found refuge in the couple of the houses, and one of them I had the next morning, I realized how many people were actually in that house when the front porch is probably got 25 people standing on it. How many people went in there?
And some of those people watched their houses float by.
They did.
It's bizarre.
It was definitely a very unreal situation.
When you talk to folks that have just seen their houses float by their street, it was like total shock. When I remember the first day or two after, it was like being in a Mad Max movie. There were people just whatever they had left on their back, they were carrying them down in little carts to get to the vehicles. The big vehicles at the
the military.
Yeah, the military vehicles to get them off the island. So
we could have used a couple of those that day.
Yeah. So how did you get through those first few hours after the storm with those folks?
Well, if anyone here on the island recalls it quite vividly, but we went through the storm at its worst from about 2 till about 5.
Yeah.
The water started receding at about I think relatively aggressively around 6:30. We could finally walk out roughly at 7. I could actually touch the street about 7:30. Well, the sun was going down.
Mm-hmm. So
when the sun went down, it was obviously you couldn't see where things were. You don't know what's on the ground,
what street you're on.
But you couldn't tell what was what. So we had no lights. So you quite quickly from being able to assess, you went from going back in to lockdown.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of a spook. You don't know who's out there, and you don't know what opportunists are coming. So and we had a vulnerability of that feeling, I think.
The first few days after the storm too, there was so much debris in the streets. There was so much sand on Estero Boulevard. There was no way to get a vehicle down unless you had some kind of buggy or something that rode over sand. Like it was like being in the Midwest trying to shovel snow out of a main highway.
The streets were definitely covered with a lot of sand and soot. The difficulty was the debris. The debris piles were probably the most difficult part. We could get over the sand, and we got vehicles down Estero, but the debris, once you got the debris out of the way, you could navigate. but we had streets that you couldn't drive down them for several weeks.
Yeah. So you get to walking around or driving around after that, and then you start to see what the storm really did. I mean, does it compute that everything like it was a car cemetery?
Yeah.
People, I remember, I don't mean to tell my little stories, and if I'm boring you guys, just tell me to move on. But the day before, I came down and I did a video, and I was just walking around to see how people were preparing. And I went over by Tropical Sunset. Is that the name of the place that caught fire?
Yeah.
Okay. And so there was a little bulldog sitting out by himself right out on the sidewalk. And I was looking around thinking, well, that bulldog shouldn't be by himself. Now I might have two if that bulldog just be, and I looked down, the owners were down in the alley. They were getting ready for the storm. They were putting sandbags out in front of their place, like 10, 12 sandbags to try and keep the water out. Now, if you look at that building, it's completely collapsed in, and there was so much damage done down there because if you guys remember, the water level was above the SOB roof.
Yeah.
That's how much water came down there.
Or level to the bottom of the overhang. Yeah. It's funny how I've seen a lot of sandbags laying around, how unuseful they became this storm. Yeah.
How about by Leonardo Arms? They had gigantic sandbags as big as this box that were totally useless. That building was destroyed.
Yeah, we get that level of impact and the velocity of that water coming in. It's powerful.
When you go by Junkanoo the first time and see that building, which you are part of, what you standing out front and looking at that restaurant that people for so many years have loved to go to right on the water. What are you thinking? Never going to be rebuilt.
When I walked out of Palermo Circle the first morning and I got to see Estero, that was a tough moment. Every building on Estero, essentially, except for Lani Kai, and from what I could see, was gone. And that was a tough moment. And actually, when I looked to the right, I could see Margaritaville, but all the older wood buildings were completely gone. And that was a devastating feeling. I'll be honest, I didn't know sitting back in the house because I was closer to the back bay, even though I see roofs and walls and major structural pieces going by. Do I actually realize in my mind and the concept come together that when I walk out onto Estero, there isn't going to be anything there. It didn't compute until I actually physically could see it, even though I probably mentally knew it was probably going to happen.
Even today, you go down Estero Boulevard and a town hall is still just a pile of dangling wires, and the Shamrock, the lady that bought the Shamrock, she just bought it like 3 months earlier.
So bad for her.
And she was her life savings she put into that restaurant, and it's just still sitting on the slanted like it's in the Wizard of Oz, like the Wicked Witch of the West should be sitting underneath that building the way it's situated.
I haven't figured out why we've had a few of these properties linger that we should have
knocked down.
Yeah, we should have knocked down. I mean, we're starting to see a point of coming together where it's cleaned up and maybe we can go forward from this point. I think getting rid of those and getting to the point of actually having new buildings going up is going to be a good feeling when we get to the new construction coming back.
Have you seen one new piece of commercial construction as a result of being lost in the storm yet being started?
I have not seen one yet. I do know that the 7-Eleven happened to have, I was told they had a building permit that was approved prior to the storm. The one at the end of Palermo and Estero.
They were going to rebuild before the storm.
He was going to rebuild, and he had an approved permit. According to him, he had the actual permit in hand. I hadn't seen the draft of the drawings or the concepts of what he was doing there. But he said he had one, so I would believe that that's going to be one of the first. I know that the Whale,
sure,
the Millers are.
We're hoping to have
aggressive.
Mike, we're hoping to have Mike come down toward the end of the show and give us an update on what's going on with the Whale.
If I had to put my finger on it, I'm going to say Mike
first.
Mike's going to be the first one.
Now wait,
down.
When you go back to the 7-Eleven, and boy, wouldn't it be nice for there to be one place on the island where people could go get groceries or something, where they don't have to go all the way down to Walmart.
You know what we need is gasoline.
Yeah,
we got to go.
You get free.
We got to go too far.
Though.
Yeah, we can't get greedy, I guess.
So, if the 7-Eleven down here rebuilds, do they have to build higher?
Well, that's going to come down to the location of the V zone. So, I believe that 7-Eleven is out of the V zone, if I'm correct, so that they can actually maintain being a ground floor dry flood proof.
Okay. Now, when you first came down here, I'm going to ask John and Debbie this. They're on their way. I see they're on their way now. But when you first come down here and you see, I mean, this is clean compared to the way it was. I
was
go back
ugly.
and saw some pictures of the first few days after. Again, it's hard to believe. Like, there used to be a bait shop in the middle of that pier, and the whole section is gone. The power of that.
It's unbelievable. I was just actually out walking, looking at the pier, and the floor of that pier, somebody just asked me, was it concrete all the way out? Because you only see the part that's touching land.
Right.
Yes, it was concrete all the way out there.
So the
It's
force of
shocking.
that is absurd.
It's amazing.
So tell us a little bit about how you see the progress after 6 months. Are we making good progress, or is it too slow?
I think for the scale of the project that we have to rebuild this island, I think we're doing decently well. I think insurance companies, as we find out the dependency that we have on the insurance companies, the control they have of some of the people to rebuild, is going to be a challenge. I think that computes the time. I hope that we see the commercial come. I think there's a need for a few of those pieces, but if we can get the residents back, obviously, into some houses, I think between the two, they need to marry each other. But as far as time, I think we're doing okay. I would like to see the cleanup finish, and I'd like to see us actually get to the point of having buildings go up. So I think if we could get to that point, I think everybody will have some gratification.
People have had to learn so much about FEMA and about insurance and about flood versus wind, and then fighting with the insurance. Then you need a public adjuster. Who the hell knew what a public adjuster was before this storm came through? And then maybe now you need a lawyer because nobody wants to pay out. It's just, why don't you just keep kicking people in the teeth while they're down and they're trying to recover?
It's that unfortunate dependency that I think there was a lot of situations where people needed it. And we've learned our lesson, I think, in a few areas. Hopefully we're smarter. We weren't prepared for this in a lot of ways, not only in an independent level of what we prepared for in our homes, and I think in some of those cases, insurance has proved that.
So what else do you want to pass along to people about the rebuild and moving forward and all that?
I stay strong, keep pushing, get your permits, go vertical. Let's get you back in.
And what is your prediction for how Times Square will look when it's finally built, whenever that might be? How high will it be here?
Don't ask me that one.
Why? It's just you, me, and a few people in the audience.
I think I don't want it to be tall. It obviously is it's a view corridor when you come over the bridge, but I think if we're delicate enough to accommodate what the property owner needs to financially sustain themselves, because what we don't want to happen is somebody build something that isn't financially sustainable, but we also have to be considerate for its location and the sensitivity of what's around it and how we want it to be.
But it does have to be taller, at least 17 feet,
well,
right?
Remember, the original buildings, a good portion of them was just single floor.
Right.
This is a V zone.
Right.
So the dependency of it needing that second floor is going to be huge in this area.
Yeah.
So the comp plan, I think, has some, without going into all the difficulties, but the comp plan, I think, has some mistakes in it or things that need to be corrected. It does, trying to get rid of them. It does say 30 feet over flood.
30 feet over flood.
That's
high.
it's tall.
So how far is flood? And then 30 feet on top of that is what? I'm not real good with math. If you ask my wife.
You're pretty good because you've already figured it out.
Now, will they be able to build on the other side of Times Square?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Higher because it's closer to the water, or
well, no,
where's the plan for all this, Joe? Who's putting up the plan?
You going to pay for the plan?
People want a plan. They want to see something. They want to see something moving down here.
I think the hurdles. There's a few hurdles that have to be worked through to get to a plan, and that's why you haven't seen a plan yet.
What are the hurdles?
The hurdles are first off the comp plan. The verbiage in the comp plan says 30 feet over flood. So the stories says only 2, and it starts from the ground. So that means 2 stories in that, but you also have 30 feet over flood. So they kind of contradict themselves. So that has to be corrected.
Yeah.
So I think a group needs to be put together, liaisoning through, I think maybe town council, a group to think this out so that something can be done sensitively, something that's good for the island and something that'll work.
Any final thoughts, Joe?
Oh, I hope we have a bunch of good guests that bring you some
Oh, yeah.
good info and some good stories.
Big hand for Joe Orlandini, everybody.
Thank you.
Before we get to our next guest, John and Debbie Lalo, I do want to remind everybody that Jorge Barrera is a sponsor of the show. You can check out Jorge's 5-star Zillow review and how his clients describe in detail their positive experience working with Jorge. Google Jorge Barrera, Zillow. I've never been on Zillow. What is Zillow? I have no idea what Zillow is. Donating 10% of his commission to the local Fort Myers Beach Hurricane Relief Organization. So far, Jorge has donated $27,000. Yeah, he deserves a round of applause. He's still volunteering at 820 Buttonwood when his time allows. Jorge Barrera can be contacted at 239-791. Come on over, Deb. Come on over, John. 9893. It's been a long time since these two folks have been on our show, and I'm looking forward to catching up on old times. Debbie Lalo and John Lalo, everybody from Pete's Time Out. And, well, I don't know, do you say formerly of Pete's Time Out? Or that's going to be a short cord. You might need to move in a little.
We
So-
actually still own Pete's Time Out.
The name.
We don't own the land anymore.
So how are you guys doing, first of all?
Doing good. Where's Kim?
She has a day job. Somebody's got to make a real living around here. So for everybody that might not know, I've said it a million times. John and Debbie were the first folks to hire us 5 years ago now at Pete's Time Out at Table 23 when we were just goofing around with a little tape recorder and then a laptop and then a few guests. And the second guest after Jack, you remember who the second guest was after Jackie? Kevin Ruane, who at the time was the mayor of Sanibel. And as he's coming over from Sanibel, the laptop locked up and wouldn't open, the previous laptop, before I went big time and got a new laptop. And I was freaking out that we wouldn't be able to interview him. It was the first time I'd ever met a mayor of a town.
All the Wi-Fi issues
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff.
But it
I
worked
wasn't
out
hooked
fine.
up for that yet.
It worked out fine. So we always appreciated the fact that you guys hired us first, and it was a great relationship that I know we'd still be enjoying if this didn't happen. So you guys got the
it was
double.
good.
You
It was a
guys
good
got the
time.
double whammy. You got the business that got whacked, and then the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Yep, we did. And,
We live 30 miles away from here, up the Caloosahatchee, up by the locks. And somehow the locks decided to stop all the water being pushed up and the water coming down, and it just swelled. And we got 35 inches through our house all the way up there too. So the devastation is just so widespread. It's just unfathomable right now. It's still to look. We came over the bridge. We almost shed a tear again,
Yeah.
you know.
When was the
mean,
last time you were both down here?
maybe a month ago.
about a month?
Yeah.
There's
It's hard for us to come
Yeah.
here. It,
Yeah.
It's the anxiety hits in real quick.
Yeah,
Right.
mean, it's 40 years we've been coming here.
40
coming
years.
over that
40.
bridge, 40 years
We met
every
right
day.
over there at top of the mast.
Yeah.
And that was
It's
1984.
1984.
so
Four.
it was something after Top of the Mast, though, right? What was it after that?
No, she's saying we met.
Right.
It was top of the mast.
Then what?
Right.
It wasn't anything until
Terry bought it.
Terry
Yeah,
bought
Terry
it.
bought it.
Okay.
then.
It's still top
Right.
of the
Sunset
mast.
Grill, is that the
That-
spot?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
So you guys come down for now. The first time we all saw Times Square was when your night manager,
Bartender.
bartender,
Ty.
Ty, came down and shot a video from over his head. He was standing right over here, and
Yeah.
that was the first time you could see Holy Christmas. I
Yeah.
mean, the buildings are gone.
Yeah,
It
that's the first
was-
we knew. That's the first we knew it was gone. We had hope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were at our daughter's house during the storm. We left maybe in about another hour. We decided, okay, it's time to go. We saw it coming and went down Buckingham Road. We were heading towards Gateway, and then we were going to go down, what's the name of that one road? Elvin.
Okay.
Elvin cuts over through the back end to Gateway. Went to make a left with the trailer, and Elvin was already flooded to a roof line. We
Mm.
were already and this was 10 o'clock, and that's not even close to where the
Yeah.
water is. It was like, I guess the fresh water was already flooding.
That's not even by the water down
No,
here. It's not
so
even,
then we had
yeah.
to head to Colonial and come up that
I
way
see.
and all that.
So when did you first come down here?
The next day.
The next day. Yeah.
Well,
And-
we went to our house first to see the destruction, and that was just overwhelming. And then drove over, walked over the bridge like everyone else, like zombies. Everyone was just
yeah.
We came
out of
this
it.
way, but you could already see. Well, you couldn't see because that one
That-
building,
yeah.
one building was still there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
back in the first few days or weeks, it was there was like a military installation down at the other end of the bridge. The sheriff's department had a big van set up, a big
Right.
operation down there. They didn't want people coming over the bridge, or you had to be a resident. You had to have your purple pass or
Right.
something like
Right,
that
right.
because they were trying to keep looters out. And the sand was still everywhere.
I mean, just on that side of the island was just so overwhelming. The shrimp boats and the big boats across and you're like, holy crap.
Yeah, it looks bad from there. You saw
Yeah.
the shrimp boats were piled on top of one another like toys.
Gulf Marine, you
Right.
know, his
Yes.
thing was blown over on top of the yachts, and it was just, okay, so what are we walking into? And it was not good.
Yeah, even coming down the road on the way to the bridge, you could see the boats that were in the mangroves, like they were
Right.
just lifted up and dropped like little Tonka toys into the mangroves, which took months and months for them to pull out. I mean, I can't imagine that. I mean, who do you call for that kind of operation? Like, okay, we've got 900 boats in the mangroves, and we'll be right down.
Yeah.
It's so you park and walk over the bridge and
Yeah. And then we walk through the debris here, all this, and we're trying to be very careful because there's no help. I mean, if you're
Right.
doing this, I mean, there's people just aimlessly that already got hurt and they're trying to get off, and you just felt like you were in the way, but you had a right to be here, but
Mhm.
you wanted not to be here, you know, because there's nothing we could do.
I think we were just in shock too. Then you really realize it's gone, and
Yeah.
it's
And then we started walking down towards where our office was to go see if we can salvage anything there, and saw Bill from Smoking Oyster, John Richard, and they're just all just shaking their head. Just everyone's in shock. I mean, you're talking about strong businessmen that know how to get through stuff, and we were all just cut. I mean, just I don't even know how to describe it. man.
When you first, I mean, were you able to salvage anything, save anything, pick anything up, or was it all just
But
basically?
once-
our sign that I can't even. How's it go? If it ain't fried, it ain't food. It was
Yeah.
on front of the bar.
Mhm,
The bar's everything's gone, and that's the only thing laying on the ground.
mhm.
So we picked it up and we took it home, carried it over the bridge, and cleaned it up, and it's hanging in our dining room now.
Pretty
So-
much imagine all of Pierside got destroyed and came through our place too.
Okay.
So everything was in a pile up against this
Thank
blue
you.
wall. So our lot was pretty much 3/4 clear. There wasn't nothing there except a cooler.
Mhm.
Well, we're German. So we look at this cooler and we know how to drink warm beer. So we grab a beer, right? What the hell? Prost, right? So we're drinking this beer and we all have a little toast, just like, hey, we're alive. We're going to get through this. We look in the cooler and it's not even our stock. It's the cooler from
Oh,
over there.
geez. So you wound up looting
We were
well,
looting.
yeah, I looted the pure side, so
didn't
home for
know
a couple
that.
beers. But I'm going to complain about the temperature a little, though.
of the warm beer.
The warm beer, and it was a little sandy too,
I
you know,
see,
around the
I see.
bottles.
So, talk about some of the memories you have at Pete's Time Out. 40 years, the different parties, the different people that come down, the regular customers.
I mean, I remember the first day that we bought it, December 1st, 1990. That's your dad coming back. I'm telling from his parents who had opened it December 1st, 1983. So he'd worked there for 7 years, cooking. I waited tables. And then I had other jobs too, but that was always my fallback. But that day, I remember they had a bell that
Yep.
they would ring, like when they
When you got a $5
big tip or something, you know, a little.
Yeah.
So we kept that bell for a long time, and
Yep.
just, you know, we just took over one day. You know, it's like
We've lost a lot of the physical memories because we got flooded too, and like everyone knows, nobody was prepared for this storm, and there's a lot of very, very intelligent people that lost a lot of stuff that they could have saved,
Mhm.
knowing that it was going to come. And it was a storm from hell.
There would be no way you could have saved anything here, though. I mean,
Well, I mean,
unless
just-
you
Oh, no,
took
unless you
everything
took
out,
it with
right?
you.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about Joe. I mean, he's talking about the forklift he's talking about. It's a huge forklift. It's
Right.
not one of those little things at Home Depot. This is a big forklift that stands 3-4 foot in the air. He could have taken that. That's probably $300,000-$400,000 piece of equipment.
Mhm.
He's a smart man. He should have had that all the way up in Elva, you know.
Yeah.
But who would have thought Elva would have got flooded too? Where
Right.
do you hide?
Right. The thing that you realize from every restaurant is they have these regular customers that come down, and even though there's so many places you can go to on the island, they find their spot. They love their spot. They're never going to miss their spot. And I'm sure you've heard over and over and over
Oh.
again from the customers.
Yes, we probably should put a photo book together with all the comments and
Right.
kind things that have been said and the memories, because
And,
it's amazing.
and we've asked a lot of people to post stuff on Pete's Timeout
Yeah.
Facebook page. I mean, we basically shut everything down because there's just, it's not going to come back. It's
Mhm.
not coming back there. I mean, I hate to give my wife's age away and my age
don't
away,
have
but
She's saying, "Don't do
we're
it."
not young people. Let's put it that way. I mean, you do the math. I've been here 40 years, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I started when I was 20.
And that's part of the dilemma too with some people. A lot of people, I think, that live down here, they're at a certain age where they were in their retirement home, and now, you know, they're forced to deal with insurance and all this other stuff and permitting and
awful.
or sell
Yeah.
Yeah.
and sell at a super high price, because everything, no matter what happened, it just seems like the property values have gone up. And you guys made that decision.
We made the decision early. There's a lot of things that went into the decision quickly, and there's some things I regret how I did it, but it was going to be done regardless. And there's some apologies we have to put out to our family a little. It's broken our family a little, and it's I hope we can get through it. I mean, there's just, business is business, and we had to get to where we feel we were 61 days from retirement when this happened. And I have to put a roof over her head. I have to think of our longevity to the rest of our lives, because that was our retirement. We didn't invest in the stock market. We invested in Fort Myers Beach. And Fort Myers Beach was no longer for us. And we had to make some quick decisions, and we did it. And I stand behind it. And I'll tell you right now, Joe Orlandini, he's the one that came to us and says, you know, I want to do contract with yours, because he has the dream of the new beach and stuff. He's a young tyke, you know.
Yeah. To us, he
And he
is.
knows how to do it. It's like, I don't think I have the knowledge of how to repair Pete's Timeout. I knew how to run it. I never built it. You know, I'm not a builder. I'm not in the real estate. So he had the knowledge.
He did. And he also was a contractor on our house. So it was
Yeah, he saved us big time.
by living way out there, we were able to get things.
When you hear from the customers that have been coming down for so long, what do they say? What are some of the comments they give you? And
They're sad.
Their grandparents came here, their parents came here, they come here,
Yeah,
their kids
they're the
come
fourth
here.
generation.
And the first place they want to go when they get here is Pete's. I mean, everybody has their own little place,
Sure,
like
yeah,
you said. We were their cheers, you know?
Yeah.
And
Marcus and Kathy Davies from Wisconsin. That was like before they even went to their condo, even if it was open, they came to Pete's Timeout. Right now, they're at a different place because they're not coming here to, you know, be part of the.
Thank you.
Let people rebuild, and they know that. You know what I mean? So they went
our
on vacation
kids
somewhere
grew up
else
here,
until it
our
comes back.
grandkids.
There was a couple that would come down and watch the show every Saturday. That older couple, I can't remember anything, but I forget which town they're from. They had a little place in Red Coconut. They would come
Right.
down, you know, for the you know, nice weather and spend breakfast there watching the show, and we would rib them all the time. And they were super nice people, but they're never coming back.
Right.
They're never coming back to Fort Myers Beach
Well,
because they can't. They
They
can't.
can't
There's nowhere to
afford
go.
it.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to stay. And the thing is, by looking at computers, of age now, like we could see how many customers we served a year.
Mhm.
Now, whether they're return customers, that's 100,000 customers a year.
Wow.
So now you start doing the math.
Yeah.
Over 40 years, it's 40
lot of
million
people.
people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, holy crap.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own story. You don't know every customer. There's times like I would
They know
work,
you.
Yeah.
I would work day
Yeah.
turns and I wouldn't know the night turn people. You know what I mean? Because you already put in 8-10 hours. You can't be there for both shifts all the time. And then you'd get regulars.
Yeah.
Like when I met you, Sarah came up and says, "Oh yeah, these guys are regulars." I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
this guy.
Yeah.
He didn't have a yellow shirt on back
The
then,
thing-
you know.
if it wasn't for Kim, we would have never ever met
Oh,
Gene
no.
because I don't want to sit with other people. I just want to sit in the corner by myself.
Have
But
your
she,
beer.
yeah, she saw Gene sitting there, and Gene, the Mr. Friendly guy, everyone thought he was the mayor of Fort Myers Beach, And so she asked him, and he's like, "Yeah, sit down." And every Saturday after that, he would be sitting there, and we
Yeah.
would sit with him the whole time.
Oh, he would
And-
heckle me every time I come walking up. Work harder, work faster,
Yeah,
work
yeah,
smarter.
Yeah.
Every time. That was his saying every time. And we've missed Gene.
Yeah.
Gene was the night. I mean, we had many of those kind of guys
Right.
before you started coming down. There was Grandpa Ed, there was John, there was
They were the GOBs.
the Three Stooges,
We called them
the grumpy old bastards.
Bastards.
Well,
yes, but we loved them.
yeah, and the
Love
thing
them.
too that some people might not know is that before you had the tables outside, you had to stop at the bar, and
Yes.
people had to sit inside.
Yeah,
because this was a
on
road,
picnic
an
benches.
actual road.
Yes.
They were on picnic benches. But like we had a group of people that would come up. We had 99-cent drafts or whatever. So they get a styrofoam cup, and this will go back a long time for some of the people who've been around. They come up, get a styrofoam cup, and they would write their name on it. So we would save that nasty styrofoam cup for them. We would have 300 of these stupid styrofoam cups hanging everywhere. They're putting their lips on them. Then they take their beer and they'd set it in the
Set the
cup. And then
beer.
we would count how many. It was crazy.
Oh, and then they got to decorating them where they were. It was like an.
It was a
art thing,
contest,
You know,
yeah.
it was like, oh my god.
And then, boy, if you lost their cup, holy crap, you were in
Wow.
for it. The girls would
Yeah.
like run. Where's Grandpa Ed's cup? And then they'd start hiding them through the restaurant because they thought somebody else was stealing their cup. It was crazy. So the old timers would really appreciate that story because that
Yeah.
was, I guess, honestly, that was what kind of made Pete's. I didn't make Pete's. It was the customers that made Pete's, and they sat there, and then they would talk like you did with Gene.
Mhm.
I know you're totally antisocial before this. Totally.
And,
And
when the microphone goes off, it's the
You
same
don't
way.
talk to nobody. And here you are talking to this guy at Pete's. And you're like, all right, let's talk
Yeah,
to him.
yeah.
You know, and it's like you felt comfortable there.
I don't know where Kara's watching, but she says, "Oh my goodness, I remember the styrofoam cups."
Oh yeah, she
Yeah.
would.
So-
She would. She's a big.
I see. Another
customer,
reason
yeah.
that people would go to these places is for the employees. Like we became good friends with Terry and Angie
Sarah.
and Sarah, and
Right.
went to Sarah's wedding,
Yep.
Yes.
and the cooks and everybody. And do you know where everybody is? Do you stay in touch
Yeah,
at all?
We did.
Sarah kind of got caught up in the system for a while, and I'm just going to go with her first because she's been with us the longest, and she's
And
probably
long means
20
like 20, probably close to 25
20
years. I'd say.
27, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah was with us 27 years, and she got caught up in Linda Loma area. Her and her husband got flooded out and lost everything,
Oh,
their
boy.
car, everything. So they got caught in the FEMA hotel thing, got moved around the state. She's back on close to the beach now, but her husband's in the hospital getting surgery today. But she's
not
back,
working. She's not
close.
working, no.
and
Ty
we're-
went to Key West.
I was your
Uh,
night guy. You went
Yeah,
to
he was our
he's our
bartender.
bartender.
all right, so if y'all want to see the Pete's Time Out employees all together, there's a place up the road called Marcos. I have Angela, Terry, and my cook, Mikey. They're all working there, so it's like a little mini Pete's Time Out.
When did Angela start there?
oh, yeah,
When Terry got someone else fired, so
Oh,
Angela
nice.
can come in.
Yeah, nice. And that's a little diner up the street
Yeah.
here.
San Carlos.
Yeah,
Oh, I
it's
didn't know
up by
Angela
Love
was
Boat.
there, too.
Up by Love Boat Ice Cream.
Gotcha.
Just a little past at the entrance of Thunderbird.
So we go in there and visit.
And
them.
they're wonderful, and the food's great there. And the only thing, they don't have mimosas, they don't have alcohol license, so they're out of there at
That's
2
okay
o'clock.
every once in a while, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you kind of you watch from afar now because you don't have to come down here, what would you like to see done down here?
Geez, I think we'd like to see, and it needs to be like a group effort. Like a few years back over here, they built like a 2-story with a walking mall like above and below.
Seafarers Village.
Where every building was
Okay.
connected.
That's before my time. Was
That was right here on this corner.
what Charlie took down?
That was the Myers built that from the Red Coconut.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Charlie may have had an effect.
And
on
they
that.
had
I
a
can't even remember.
Tetley's Steakhouse upstairs.
Wow.
Dusseldorf's
Very
was
nice, yeah.
downstairs. Cabascas.
Tabascus.
And it was a
Mexican
hopping
little-
place.
yeah.
Wow.
But the issue we always saw was people did not want to go up steps.
Yeah.
So what I would like to see, and this was my first thing before Mr. Bill Veach said this, was that it needs to be connected. This needs to grow here. This needs to grow here. And you have to have a platform over all of this and then let the buildings, but it's going to take all these business owners to
Yeah.
come together to build this one platform. That way you can bring the square to the flood height
I see.
and then let each individual do what they got to do on the platform, kind of like Margaritaville
So
is
does
doing
underneath-
with their big flat thing out there.
Does
You
the
know?
underneath become a parking lot or a
No, I
walking
think
lot?
they
or-
should let the people still use the
Yeah,
underneath.
yeah.
Yeah,
Have
and,
it
and
stuff
you
you
got to
can
start
move.
thinking
Come on.
about. I mean, this town has a new drawing board.
Yeah.
They got to think about bathrooms. They can't expect these restaurants to keep providing free restrooms.
Right.
You have, I mean, look at all these people come down here. Where are the bathrooms right now?
Yeah.
Because the restaurants are gone. So
Well,
there's a need for it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of more bathrooms.
Yes.
Yeah, you need them.
And you
If
have
I
to,
make this 3-hour show without having to get up, it'll be the
Yes.
first time ever. So
exactly.
you have to remember every place has to have an elevator
yeah.
and a stairway.
Or they have to work together to
So
have
they
them on both
need to
ends.
work
Well,
together.
And like
Yeah.
here's the elevator shaft right here for the square. Okay. So if you had this one elevator and one over there, then that would service all these restaurants.
Yeah.
If you don't work together, you have to have an elevator, 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 elevator. Then you have to have a switchback walkway going up 18 foot, whatever it's going to be, at each individual property.
Right.
Because
Right.
we're not collectively working together. They
Right.
have to work together.
And you have how many business owners on this side? Then you have the town owns the road. You have the county
And then that
owns
side
Lindholm
too.
Park. The county owns the pier, and the county owns this park. So it's the politics and the businesses
Confusing,
all together that have to
confusing, yeah.
agree on everything.
And that's where the big money's got to come in.
And they
Yeah.
don't even have a committee together yet to start that whole
Well,
process.
let's hope
No.
they get one.
No.
So
Any more questions?
yeah.
What?
How's the house now that you've dealt with the storm?
We
at your
just got our
house?
permit.
I promised I wouldn't
All right.
bring up permits.
No,
today.
I'll bring up. We filed for our permit immediately when we started. So we just kept continuing moving. Like, ask for forgiveness, not permission. Just keep moving forward, moving forward.
I don't know whether we should.
But everything we've done is to code. But we got everything built, and we just got our permit last week through Lee County. So everyone complaining on Fort Myers Beach, just
Yeah.
back off. Lee County is supposedly better off shape. What are we, 6 months?
Yeah, it's all the
5
same.
months?
Everybody's dealing with the
It's
same thing.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
The whole thing is so
But
overwhelming.
we dealt with the same thing. Everybody here. We still have to go by the 50% rule. We have
Right.
to watch everything like a hawk.
Right,
But
right.
we're in our house, so
What are some of your best memories of Fort Myers Beach, John?
Meet my wife, Debbie.
Oh,
that's
that deserved a
sweet.
round of applause there.
Mwah,
Oh.
That's sweet.
Of course, I was drunk.
So was
Just
I.
ruined it.
Honestly,
Good comeback, Debbie.
we just celebrated the 60th birthday of one of my best friends of Fort Myers Beach, Corey Bennington. And him and I used to airbrush T-shirts right next to Pete. Well, it's called Ronnie's at the Beach, was Pete's Time Out. The Greek restaurant rented an area to a T-shirt place called the Top Shop. And Corey and I were the airbrushers of Fort Myers Beach.
Wow. How much
I
did an-
actually helped teach Miss Anita Saracita how to airbrush because she
Right.
wanted to know
Look
how to
at that.
airbrush.
You launched her into a great career in fashion.
Very. She owes me dearly.
Yeah. So, how much was an airbrush T-shirt back in the 40s?
There were times I made $3 a day, and it was
Wow.
spent at the top of the mast
Yeah.
in full. But it
at
was
that
$3. It was $3 for a name, $9 for a beach design, and then you would get some custom things. You might make $25 off a shirt, and you would
Jeez.
spend 4 hours on the shirt doing it, and it was all freehand. You had to do
But I
everything
remember
freehand.
your last day when you quit. You made $180 that day. So
Look
that
at
was a
you.
lot
big
of money
day.
back then.
That was
Wow.
a big day.
You just cleared
lot
out.
of
It was a
money.
Hey,
clearance
Tom.
day. You cleared everything
Yeah.
out. So
There's one of your new leaders of this island.
that's right.
there.
Tom at
And
Laurel, everybody.
Yes.
Big hand for Tom.
Nice to see
He
Tom.
was out here right away trying to get
Yes.
people food and drink and entertainment and working his butt off.
And he ain't young either. Look at him.
He's way- so one
He's
of the
younger than us.
one of the properties that we don't hear anything about, I know you're friends, so maybe you can break some news here, is Plaka. Steve and those guys, we haven't heard anything about them. What's
Oh.
going on with that piece of property there?
Well, I can't speak for them. They have a partnership, and when the partnership comes to a understanding, then they will pull their trigger. Until then, their property's been paid off for many, many years, unlike mine, and they can afford to sit.
Wait, so
And-
you're saying pull the trigger? They're going to sell that? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that. I said pull the
Is that-
trigger.
isn't
one.
that what he
What-
said?
No, I mean,
what they're
if
gonna
what they're going to
do.
do.
I see.
I mean,
Have you ever?
his
Have you had?
partners are older too. They're older than us,
I see.
but they have family that goes willed down. So theirs is a little more complicated than ours because we were just the sole owners at the time, and it is what it is. You
So
know?
when you talk to Steve, does he tell you whether or not he believes he can make money if he builds higher? Like it's going to take a lot to make
would
money
take a
down
lot.
here.
It's like a lot to build it.
Yeah.
How long is it going to be before you get it built? And what
Yeah.
are you going to make?
Well,
when
here
you
we go
get it?
back to the
Yeah.
footprint. His
Yeah.
property is maybe 600 square foot bigger than mine. So you
Yeah.
still got to do the switchback. You got to do the elevators. You got to go in the air. I mean, you're talking $2-3 million just to build the building.
Gotcha. What's your fondest memory that has nothing to do with John on Fort Myers Beach, Debbie?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, a lot of people probably don't know this, but I actually worked at the Lonnie Kai once. Oh, can I
Okay.
say that?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
I had some really
Hey,
good
there it is.
times there because I actually worked for a company called American Vacations, and the building across the street, they were selling as timeshare,
Okay.
even though it was Lonnie Kai owned. They were selling it as timeshare. So we worked from 2 to 10 writing contracts, and at by 7 o'clock, they'd let us go drinking. So I have a lot of good memories. And he would get off work and come down there then, but I don't know if that's my best memory.
Well, what do you
I've had
guys
so
miss the
many.
most about Peach Timeout?
Oh, being here, and
customers.
the customers in our family coming
Just walking
down.
up and people are like, "Hey, John, what's up? What's up? Hey, how you
Yeah.
guys doing? Everyone's doing good. Everyone." And you know, my staff was just awesome.
Yep.
How I assembled that staff, or we assembled that staff over the years, I don't think I can duplicate it. It
Yeah.
just became what it became because the staff were so great. They look for staff that were similar to them. You
Right.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they can work out between them who's going to stay and who's going to go. You didn't have to fire people, believe me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Those they were there for a long time. For as long as
Yeah.
we were there, we were always waited on by the same
Right.
people. Yeah.
If you didn't fit in, you were out.
Right. And Terry let you know that. Right. She was
Terry-
running the shop there in the morning.
Terry
so.
still will let you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we definitely miss her. So and we miss Pete's time out. We miss you guys, and we
Oh.
appreciate you giving us our start in this crazy, whatever it is.
Yeah,
that
we
we
took
have
a
going
chance
here.
with you, right?
Yeah.
And what
that's
did I
right.
tell you though? I said, just go have fun with it,
Yeah.
right? Just have
Yeah.
Well, we
fun.
couldn't
It
figure
was-
out if we wanted it that night. We were watching it over. We couldn't figure out, is this a dumb idea or is it ever
Oh,
going to
it
work?
was
Or
stupid.
is anyone ever going to watch, or why would they watch Facebook? And
I gave you 2 weeks. I'm like, whatever.
right.
You want to go do what
That's
you're
right.
doing, go do what you're doing. I'm like, you're not going to bother my operations. No.
one of
Then
the,
all of a sudden I had to give up a whole table in the middle of season for your guests.
until I got kicked out with my running my mouth. I got kicked
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Hey,
so,
that needs to change with the charter too.
about the being out here.
Beach Talk Radio's got to get a free pass from now
No,
on.
I don't. I
Yes.
don't want any special treatment. No.
Yes.
One of the best interviews. Kim walked off at the time it was taking place. Some of you might remember it was with Todd Truax, who was running for. He was running for. I don't even remember what he was running for.
Oh,
he was
when
running
you-
for something locally,
When
and he
you told
brought
him
it.
to F off.
He brought a Joe Biden flag into
Yeah.
Peach Timeout, and he draped it up behind us. And he was. And I was having fun with him for a while until it got to the point where I have a
Oh,
tendency
that
to
was-
lose my control at some point.
So
and-
that's your favorite memory of Fort Myers Beach?
no,
Just
that's
a memory.
that's one of the shows that kind of helped us because it
You
was so
broke the
crazy.
Pete's Timeout Creed too. I said no F-bombs on there. And you're like,
So thank you for
so
that.
for you first timers, what episode was that? So
I
they
have
can
no
go back
idea.
and look in the archives.
no
'cause
idea.
That was a classic.
If
believe
Kim
me.
was here, I would have never brought that up because she was mortified.
Replay it. You
And
got to
I said,
replay it.
I said, I'm going to take that Joe Biden flag and I'm going to stick it, and you guys could fill in the
Boom.
blanks there. And it just didn't.
And it isn't that he wasn't against Joe Biden. It was
No.
like you just don't come on there into my
This
place
is not
and
Joe
start
Biden
doing-
territory. Nothing against him,
No,
but he
and
just
it wasn't
picked the wrong
even that.
spot for that.
We loved everybody. We love everyone.
That's right. You can't be political.
Like John Richard says, I'm Switzerland. We love
Yeah,
everybody.
Well, thank you guys for coming on. Thank you for the
Thank you
memories.
for all you
and thank you
doing.
for
Yes.
taking us
And
down memory
everyone
lane.
just still hang in there. It's coming. The hope's there for you guys. And if anyone, I'm reaching out. If anyone needs help, you can call me anytime. You can get my number through Ed or go on Facebook or whatever. John Lalo. If you need anything, just let me know, please, because we're far away. If I'm coming down, I want to help a bunch of people, but I'll do whatever you guys want. All right.
Thank you, John. And Debbie Lalo
you,
for
Ed.
Pete's Timeout. Thank you for everything. No mic drop. Thank you very
Hey,
much.
where's the Pete's Timeout thing?
I had it retired. It's in the museum now.
Oh,
It's going to be in the museum with all those nice street signs that are out all over Fort Myers Beach when they finally take them down. Thank you all for coming out here. They do have breakfast and thank you for wearing the yellow shirts and thank you for supporting the show. And our next guest is the mayor of Fort Myers Beach. He's heard every Monday night, and we're hoping Kevin Guthrie joins us. You're not going to be able to see him if he does. He's going to be remotely. I'm hoping you can hear him. But Dan Allers, the mayor of Fort Myers Beach, is a busy man. You can watch him every Monday night. We do a little show together to try and keep everybody informed on things and try and keep the information flowing out there. And you've been pretty busy this morning. How many TV shots did you do?
A couple. Of course, it's the most humid day of the year too. I walked out
know.
of the camper this morning. I thought, oh, this is not fat guy friendly weather.
So for people that don't know, you experienced the same kind of issues that a lot of people on the island have. Your house was destroyed in the storm.
Yeah, one of the first people that I saw when I walked out the door was Joe, who you had on earlier, and so I was listening to some of the things he was saying, and I mean he was spot on. Exactly what he said is exactly what you saw, and then after that it was Chief Ron Martin, who we talked to, see him come over the bridge, and as he said, to call it catastrophic would have been a gross understatement because he couldn't even get past the 7-Eleven at Palermo Circle. So it was we lost our everything. We were fortunate. The house made it. The windows held up because after Irma, obviously we had to do windows and roofs and stuff like that. So that actually held up, but everything inside, we're on one of the highest streets on the island. So we only took 5 feet of water in the house, but it made everything, turned it into a washing machine. Essentially everything inside, we did what everybody else did and brought all the stuff into the garage to try to protect it from blowing and being missiles flying into other people's houses. And it just took everything and flipped it upside down and put it on my wife's Jeep. And, most people that know us, she probably loved that Jeep more than she loved me, but so she was sad to see that she lost that. But obviously lost our cart business and
Now,
I didn't have a job and now Megan doesn't have a job. So we're all
wait,
just,
what? I didn't know about that.
yeah.
But,
So they decided to go a different direction and bring everything
bummer.
in the house. So
wow. So backing up a little bit, the cart business, he owned Island Carts FMB with Tim Ryan, and it had just launched like a year or less earlier.
yeah, we started in December of 2022 or 21, just before the new year. And we started with 4 carts. By June, we were up to 15 carts.
Right.
And we were just about to get some more. And obviously the storm came in, but so we had all of our carts over at the Buttonwood location, and that's elevated. We got about 18 inches of water over there, which was just enough to cover the motors and seize everything up. So luckily the insurance covered, I'd say 99% of it. So we were fortunate in that aspect, but we were on our way. We were doing really well, and we were poised. We had a lot of reservations already booked for this season, but obviously you had to cancel those and do all that. But we've received a lot of support from the people that did use the service in the past, and they're looking forward to us coming back and want to be first in line. So it's nice. We still get calls to this day from people just checking in on us, see how
Yeah.
we're doing.
So for anyone that doesn't know, I'd like to recap a little bit. The 820 Buttonwood location, where all the donations started and all the people really started to come together when they couldn't get over the bridge. That's where the carts were located. And the first time I went in there, I remember, it was muck and mud everywhere. And within 24 hours, you guys had it cleaned out and ready to accept donations. And to this day, people are still donating stuff for people on the beach.
Yeah. Tim and I had talked on the phone. He was not here, but like, what can we do with the space to help out the community? And he was on board with, let's get it cleaned out. So he was down here right away. And like you said, we got it cleaned out and started putting the word out through Beach Talk Radio and anybody that would listen that, we're here to help. And the semis started rolling in from all over the country. And we realized that we had a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work. I mean, we'd run into each other there at 4:00 in the morning, sometimes 4:30, just, getting stuff ready and trying to get ready for the day. And as you said, to this day, it's still being used. It's much more organized now than it was. It's actual 501c3 FMB strong now. So, Alex King's foundation's involved in it. So it's going down the right path. It's helping a lot of people, and it kind of warms your heart that out of bad, something good came.
Back in the early days, I remember Kim and our daughter Jillian came over because we wanted to help. And one of the first things we did was we walked down, I don't remember the name of the street was, we were passing water cases out from somebody's house, and you couldn't get down the road. There was houses in the middle of the street. So we were actually, this felt like we were being creepers, but you had to walk around somebody's backyard and then in the front yard and in the backyard, and you had to watch out for the glass and the nails to get cases of water that we were bringing for somebody. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it was back in those first days on every single street.
It was. Yeah. I mean, we would take cases of water. A company from Indiana brought down a truckload of plywood, which we dispersed over some of the 7-Eleven parking lots, and a lot of food. And, that helped people get their houses at least boarded up and secured from people trying to get in there. So there was a lot of things, like you said, there wasn't one street. And I'd say in the first 2 weeks, I at least walked down every single street once. And, it took several weeks to clear a lot of these streets out. You're climbing over people's homes, their cars, their belongings. It was just, you thought it's never going to be the same. There's no hope, And, the first day, the first sign of hope that I had after passing the two people that didn't make it through the storm, we were able, speaking of Tim, he actually called me and said, one of my tenants I can't reach. He said, can you get down there and check on him? So that's when I started down the island to try to get down. He's about the 5,500 block of Estero on
Mm-hmm.
Estero. So I made my way down there, and I happened to get there about the same time that two other gentlemen got there, and the house that he was in obviously came off its pilings, and it was in a pile up against the house behind it, on the street behind it. And we could hear him, but we couldn't see him. So digging him out, we finally got him out, and he had been pinned in there. So, he ended up making it. He survived. He'd been on the island for 20 or 30 years. I can't remember exactly how long, but he was able to, he had no shoes on. His legs were all scunned up. Obviously he was dehydrated. But we were able to get him out of the building, climbing over everything he had to climb over to get him out. And we got him out to the beach where he was able to get picked up. But, he said he felt the house start shifting, and he knew that, water started coming in, the house started shifting. He said the only thing I could think of was grabbing my mattress. So he climbed onto his mattress and clung onto his mattress and floated it with the building into the house behind it. And then when it collapsed, it collapsed on him, but he was on the mattress, and that actually saved him. He was pinned in, but he was able to get out. So that was my first sign of hope. Like, okay, we're going to find some people. We're not everyone's going to be, drowned or missing.
When you're first driving around in the pickup and you're seeing everything that you're seeing for wherever you could get, you couldn't really get to too many places, or however you got around that first time.
Well, the morning, right after the storm, I thought I'm going to go out and grab a bike and start going up and down the island. And obviously where we were at, the water was about 16 feet, because where we were standing was 17 feet. So the water was about a foot from coming up to touching my feet, So I went out, I'm going to grab the bike and go try to help whoever I can help. Well, there was such muck, it was probably a foot of muck that you could barely walk even on flat ground. It was like very slimy and slippery. And so there was no way you were going to bike. So I just started out walking, and it took me 45 minutes to get to Estero Boulevard. And it took me what normally would take less than an hour to walk from here to my house. It took me 6 hours. So to see what it was, if you didn't get a chance to see what it was before they were able to come in and actually plow a path, I think it took 4 days to be able to get to the south end of the island and start rescuing people out of the condos down there who had lost their steps. They were trapped. They couldn't get out. Some of these condo people, and, for the fire department to get down there with their ladders, they had, I think it was 3 or 4 crews. The first crew would come in and they were taking just handheld debris and throwing it to the side. And then the next crew would come in and they had skid loaders where they were moving dishwashers, refrigerators, things like that. And then the next crew came in with a bigger loader that was moving cars and bigger things that the skid loader couldn't lift. And then they had the plow kind of thing come through, and they eventually were able to get to the south end of the island. But Jim Adderholt, our vice mayor, was down on the south end of the island, and he and I were in communication as much as we could. As the cell phone coverage was slim to none. You had to be very lucky to find a place to get communication. So your batteries would die very fast because it's searching for signal all the time. And he keep touching base with me because saying, when are we going to get help down here? We're 3 days in and we still don't have any help down here. And it was hard to say, we're coming, because you couldn't come from the south end,
Right.
because the bridge was shifted and it was closed. So you had one access point to get there. But eventually we got there, and we started moving in the right direction after that.
When you look back now at you still see big chunks of houses or buildings on the side of the road. Do you think that a lot of progress has been made, or more progress than you thought was? I mean, it's always easy to say in the first 2 months, I can't believe there's so much stuff here, but 6 months later, you realize what a massive project it was to move buildings and houses and sand and find people at the beginning.
Yeah, I remember one of the meetings we had up at the county building with one of the first meetings I was in, that with FEMA was there, and they were talking about the amount of debris, and they estimated in Lee County that there was about 10 million cubic yards of debris that they estimated from the storm in just Lee County. And of that, 2.5 million cubic yards were just on our little 7 Mile Island. So that kind of gives you a little idea of the devastation. So, I have to really give it to Governor DeSantis and Kevin Guthrie and FDEM. Those guys came down, they stepped up, they provided the resources, they assumed our debris removal contract, picked up for the right of way. They've been handling all of the debris, and I don't know where we'd be if that wouldn't have happened. Just to see what it was and to see what Bay Oaks looked like even 2 months ago to what it looks like now, it looks like nothing ever happened for the most part, other than the fields and everything are gone. But that was the biggest challenge, and I think we still have that challenge. The deadline's coming up. Don't forget, for Ian debris cleanup, you got to register for that by tomorrow. If you're in the queue, they'll still come out. They'll come out and take care of your property. They're not going to go away from us. They've assured us that they're here to help us as long as they have to, because the debris is the biggest thing. Everyone I've talked to in any storm from Bay County and on down, anyone that's been involved in it, they've all said the same thing, that the debris is the hardest part. And I would have never expected what I saw the day after the morning of the storm, when I came out the day after, the amount of debris that was here. I would have never in a million years thought we'd been this far after 6 months. But every day you see a new house come down, another house that needs to come down, and there's still a lot of work to be done.
When you see the people, or saw the people back then, and then see some of the people now, do you think mentally they're okay?
I think it was difficult because over the last 6 months, you've seen people, they go through I always say they go through different degrees of grieving, and not everybody is aligned. Some people, you get angry, like, why me? And then you feel pity, and then you feel like, okay, I got to get ready to go. And it was difficult to see and talk to so many people, whether you're a business owner, you were a snowbird, you were a resident, or just a vacationer. It was difficult to see and hear the stories about people that, just grieve completely different. I've always been one that once I can't control a situation, if my house was gone, I have to move forward. I can't dwell on the past, but not everybody's like that. A lot of people, Megan and I, happy birthday, by the way, honey. Everything that we've accumulated, her late father, my late father, all of the stuff we've accumulated over our life fit in 4 tiny little, clear bins. And you think that, God, how are we ever going to be the same? And so it was difficult to see that. Megan obviously handled it a little bit different than I did. I was the first one to see our house and realize that, again, there's nothing left to save. I'm just going to move on. And so when I was able to finally get Megan down there, she needed a little bit more time to, go through things, try to save some things, and then realize eventually that there was really not a lot to save. So it was hard. Everybody went through the same the same grieving. I always, I say it probably more than I should, but the storm really didn't care what your economic level was. It didn't care if you were a millionaire or like me, 100-aire. It didn't matter. It didn't matter how big your checkbook was. It took everything away from you.
Yeah.
And, everybody's grieving a little bit different, but I think everybody is kind of past the grieving part. Some people that I talked to last week who haven't been down here, this is the first time being down here to see the storm. They knew that their house was destroyed, but they hadn't been down here yet to see it. They've been doing everything away. They're still shocked. They're like, I can't believe it looks like this. You should have seen it 6 months ago. Right. But they, they're so now they're going through the grieving thing that everybody else does. But I think for the most part, people have gotten over okay, there's, still dealing with insurance and probably some FEMA stuff, but now it's time to put the gloves and the boots on and get to work.
Yeah. When every once in a while at Wahoo Willie's, somebody will come down for the first time and they'll say, this is like a week or two ago, I just came over for the first time and I'm so devastated. And all I can do is have a blank face. Like, okay, well, you don't want to know what it was like 5 months or 6 months ago, because no matter how many pictures you can post or anything that you can send, it's not the same thing as when you're standing in it and you're just looking around and saying, it looked like an atomic bomb just fell on this island.
Yeah. I remember one of the first people that I took around the island to show around was Congressman Donalds. And they had obviously flown over, he and Jesse Burton from Bonita Springs. They had obviously flown over and seen it from overhead. And I had actually never seen it overhead until this weekend when I flew back from Iowa. Was the first time I got to see the island from up above. And had not knowing any better, when you see it from up above, it really doesn't look that bad. I mean, you see it, there's obviously houses gone, but you can't see the degree of devastation that you see when you get to the ground level. So when they had obviously seen it, they thought, and they were honest. They're like, we didn't, we thought it wasn't that bad. And then when we started going down the road and you could see what we've all seen now, that when you look through, there may be a roof and 4 posts holding it up, but there's nothing at ground level. I mean, it's like a flamethrower went through and took everything out. Your studs, everything inside it is gone. And you don't get that perspective unless you're actually on the ground walking or biking or driving through. And they had never saw that. So when they saw it, they were like, wow, we stopped on Hibiscus, which is probably one of the biggest hit street, all those concrete homes, the first 7, 8 of them are completely gone and there's no blocks to be found. And explaining that to them, that's when I think it really sunk in that, wow, this was really devastating. But from the air, it doesn't. All you see, just like the Beach Baptist from the air, you see the Beach Baptist church roof and you're like, it looks like it's still intact. And then you get down and then you see what you really see. And then you're like,
Hibiscus is the example of the people on that road think a tornado came through that street, because the first like 5 or 6 houses on both sides of the road are completely gone.
Well, they're one of the only streets that was completely exposed to the water.
Okay.
Because there used to be Surf 'n Us across the street from there. And obviously that Surf 'n Us came down. So it was just a bare lot. So I don't remember if you remember a few years back, I was 2009 or 10, somewhere in there. Or maybe it was later. No, I'm sorry, like 2016 or 17, something like that. But they had that little mini tsunami that came through that hit Naples.
Yeah.
Well, Heidi and Bruiser were managing the Surf 'n Us at that time.
Okay.
And they had a little octagon bar in that spot where the Surf 'n Us used to be. And they called me up and they're like, Dan, can you come and give us a hand? The bar is down the street. So that it's just like where the island curves right there, it seems like that gets the serve. So they had residents that were staying in the lower units and they said they heard this noise and they opened up the window and they just saw this 4 foot of water come and it hit the side of the building.
Yeah.
And then it pushed everything down the street, right down Hibiscus. So that was why the building was still there. So they probably had, I'd say, a foot to 18 inches of what was like concrete. Sand had gotten packed down from the water flowing over it. That it took us, I don't know how many days to chip up that sand with hose and stuff just to break it up. So now that that's gone, I guess I wasn't really shocked to see the devastation that went down, because that water had nothing to break its path. And it came through, and Jackie's house was one of the first ones in the corner there, and it took that on. And I thought, because she sent me a message, she's like, I know you're walking down the street, can you take a picture of my house? And I said, I'd love to, but it's not here. And she thought I was kidding. And no, it's gone.
That's the other thing that was so bizarre. Like when you want to interview somebody about what they're going through, and the first question you have to ask them is, what does it feel like to come home to your house and it's not there? Like, did you ever think that somebody would ever ask you that question? Like, you feel like you're prying in somebody's life. Like, what do you mean? How do I feel? That's the dumbest question in the world. My house is gone.
Well, yeah. I think the second dumbest question came after that. Is like, how are you doing? That seemed to be.
I didn't ask that one. That was Kim.
Well, how do you think I'm doing? You know?
Yeah, just peachy.
Yeah.
And the power of that water is incredible. Like
It was like, maybe someday I'll share some of the videos that I took that day, but to see the structures that it moved and just moving 30, 40-foot boats, the house we were in line with the mooring field. I've told the story that one of the boats busted off and we heard the diesel engine, and very experienced captains on the boat. We ended up finding out who they were later after the storm, but they were very experienced captains. And when they were turning around, I told them if it were me captaining that boat, I would have been full speed ahead and put that thing right up on the deck of where we were staying,
right.
and got off that boat and got got into the house, because we could see they had their TV on, so we knew that they were in there. So once they broke free and they were able to get back to Hurricane Pass, and I think they ended up 300 yards or something into the mangroves once the water settled.
Jeez.
And they had to get lifted out of there. But the boat behind it was probably a 40-foot sailboat, and I mean the mast was just, because the waves came up the back bay at first, and they were 6 to 8 foot waves, which is tremendous in the back bay. You normally
Right.
get a 1 foot chop or something, but they were coming up from the south. They're coming up the back bay towards the Matanzas Pass Bridge, and what was weird is the wind was blowing towards the Matanzas Pass Bridge, but the bow of the boats were facing towards the Matanzas Pass Bridge. So you would think that the bow of the boats would be facing into the wind, but because the current was coming in underneath, it was turning. It was just the weirdest thing I've ever seen. So their stern is taking all this water, and then the current would light up, and then the boat would shift around, and then they'd be taking it off the bow. So they were doing this
Mhm.
for hours.
Mhm.
And this sailboat that was behind this boat that broke free just kept flipping from, starboard to port, just kept going back and forth. And eventually, we could see the TV on, and they, I'm making eye contact with these people. And then all of a sudden the big wave came and the boat was gone. Never saw 'em
Wow.
again.
Wow.
So, we saw 2 or 3 of those happen. And
Where were you seeing this? At the house?
at the house?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you stay on the island?
we did.
You
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And would you stay again?
I get asked that question a lot. If I could be in a house, this house was obviously built at current FEMA standards.
Okay.
So I didn't feel, when the water came 1 foot touching my feet on the second level, my wife kind of started panicking and started taking the animals to the 3rd story, and along with all of the stuff that we had brought with us to the 3rd story. And I literally pulled the cooler over to the stairs and of course grabbed a beer and sat there, and I sat and watched that water, because it hadn't come in the front door yet, which was about, I'd say 8 to 10 feet above the ground. It hadn't come in, but it was starting to come up the window, and it started leaking in. And, I thought, well, I'm going to,
I remember you showing that video of the window,
yeah,
the
so
water.
I'm going to put a towel down.
Yeah, right.
Right.
There's a few sandbags.
So
The sandbag
you're
will
like-
stop the
you know, you're
storm.
trying to- so it came in, it started coming in, and then it started coming up the stairs. And that's when I pulled the cooler over and sat in that cooler and cracked a beer. And I told my wife, I said, if this touches my feet, this island is in even worse trouble than it is now.
Yeah.
And it never did. It came in, and it seemed like it never stopped coming, and it never stopped coming. And I'm getting messages from people or seeing on Facebook, because we still had coverage at the time. So that's
Right.
the only way we communicate with the outside world. And I actually saw on Beach Talk Radio, a lady said that her dad was staying on the same street, and that he was cutting a hole in the ceiling to get into the ceiling. And
Crazy.
he was 2 doors down from me, and there was nothing I could do. I mean, there was no way I could go outside. And that was a gut wrenching punch.
Yeah.
You're 2 houses away. Look, the first person after Joe, the first person I saw was, or I didn't see him first person. A day or 2 after, I ran into the gentleman, and he's like, "Yeah, my daughter was a little overreacting. He goes,
Yeah, right.
I was fine." And he was like, so he played it off. He made it. He was fine. But as the water was coming in, and it was coming up so slowly, I thought it was never going to end. And then all of a sudden, within an hour, it was back over the seawall. It just
Wow.
it was gone.
Yeah.
Like
But when you're watching the water rise, again, this could be a dumb question, and I apologize if it seems like prying, but when you're watching the water rise and you have no idea where it's going to stop, are you thinking I need a life jacket, or are you thinking, how do I get out? Because you can't really, what are you going to do? Swim?
Well, I mean, luckily where we were at, we had a 3rd story that we could go to. So I felt safe, but you could hear things like you could hear the tiles coming off the roof, and they're shattering. At first, you don't know what it is, but you're hearing these tiles shatter on the decking on the 2nd level. And you're like, what's that? And you're not sure. And then you can hear, my truck was in the garage below, and I could hear my truck sloshing around and banging around. I thought, what if one of these pillars go, this house could come down.
Yeah.
That's when I started thinking, boy, I hope whoever built this really knew what they were
Yeah.
doing. And fortunately, we were fine. But if we would have had to evacuate to the third floor, Florida would have been underwater.
Yeah, yeah.
It is kind of the way I looked at it. It wouldn't matter where you were at. As John was saying, they're 30 miles inland and they got 3.5 feet
Yeah.
of water. So, that storm had a lot of power to it. I think, we had a lot of, in the conference I was talking at up there, one of the questions I was asked was, what could you think anything could have been done different to maybe make people aware? Because I think we all agree that there was a lot of false sense of hope after Irma, because Irma was supposed to be what Ian was, and we actually got nothing. The water went out but never came back in.
Yeah.
And we were prepared. We stayed on the island for that one as well, but we were in a similar type house, and we had tied kayaks to the pillars. We did everything we could do because we were expecting the worst. We had generators on the third level. We had gas we had everything we could, as prepared as we could be for this storm. And
nothing happened.
And nothing happened. And so I think that gave people a lot
Yes.
of false sense of security. And I remember during Irma, the reason that I stayed during that is Megan had the car packed up. We were going to leave. We were going to head up to her mom's place in the Villages and just get away, because we had never been through it. And they're talking 15-foot storm surge. That's a lot of water. And Bruiser actually called me up and he says, can you come help me put these storm shutters up on this guy's house on Hibiscus?
Okay.
And
A house that's no longer there.
it was right on the corner of Hibiscus. And so I said, sure. So I ran down there. Megan already had the car loaded. The animals were packed up. And we get there, and I don't remember exactly how old he was. He was in his 80s, and he had an oxygen tank, and he was inside the house. And we're like, well, where are you going? Where can we take you? He's like, I'm not leaving. I've been through every storm here for the last 40 years. I'm not leaving. I'm like, well, I can't put these storm shutters up and entomb this guy in this house. And he's like, just do it. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. So Bruiser and I put up all these storm shutters, and we literally entombed this guy in his house. And on the drive back, I just kept thinking, I can't leave this guy knowing if we get a 15-foot storm surge, he's stuck in his house. So I went home and told Megan the story, and I said, I can't leave. And she goes, okay. So she started unpacking the car, and we ended up staying. And, right after the storm, fortunately, we didn't get anything. We were able to go back and get him out right away. But that Irma was the reason that I decided to get into politics, believe it or not.
No kidding.
That
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
Yeah. So the day after the storm, we went and let him out, and then we, we're obviously getting calls to check on people's houses and that. So we started down the road, and we were right here actually turning left to go down to check on a house for a couple down on the north end of Estero. And here's a fire truck, and in the back of the fire truck is the then mayor standing in the back waving at people like it's a Macy's Day Parade. And it enraged me so much that I thought it could be so many other things you could be doing than standing in the back of the truck and waving like it's a parade. And it just made me mad, and then I had to get involved, and so that's what actually led me into politics.
I didn't know that.
But
so you become the mayor after the last election. Things change. You become the mayor, and did you ever think like some of the first calls you're going to get are, my neighbor's car is in my pool, what do I do? Or there's a house in my backyard, how do I get rid of it? I mean, the most bizarre kinds of calls you're ever going to imagine.
Well, I think that's how you can tell how the recovery is going, quite honestly, because the first calls were obviously, I can't get a hold of this person. Can you help me try to locate these people? And, you and Kim were instrumental in helping me at the beginning and getting as much word out as we could, as fast as we could. Whenever we got the information, we always didn't get information as fast as I would have liked it. But, you're dealing with the most dangerous storm or devastating storm that ever hit Florida. So then it kind of progresses into, well, when is the debris, fast forward a couple more emotions, and you get to when is the debris going to get gone? And now we're kind of at the point where people are starting to get back in their houses. And I got a complaint the other day. Why is my neighbor's garbage can still sitting out? Well, ma'am, they don't have a house. So, or the signs, people are, now upset about signs. So it's no longer, I've got a car in my pool. Now we're kind of moving into the things, the noise ordinance. People are complaining about the noise now. So we're kind of getting back into, I don't want to say normal, but some of the things that were a daily occurrence that you had to address, which I never thought I would say. These are softballs.
Yes. I'll go get the garbage can for you, man.
Yeah, that's easy. I can handle that.
Was that really a Category 4 hurricane?
I don't. They say the miles per hour. When we were up in Tallahassee, Director Guthrie was addressing was addressing the legislation and talking about it. And his personal belief is that it will get changed to a Category 5. He said that in a testimony.
Does that change funding?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. But if that wasn't a Category 5, I don't want to ever see it.
Right. What is it? If this is not the result of a Category 5 hurricane, I mean, what could be?
Maybe it's something that has to get looked into. Sure, maybe the winds were 2 miles per hour or whatever it was below what would rank it as a Category 5, but that water,
there should be some formula where the water gets put into the calculation of the storm surge, gets put into the calculation of the wind to make it. I mean, are you upset with the way the insurance companies are dealing with folks on the island? They just seem to be getting a screw job.
I don't think I've ever said the words insurance and happy in the same sentence in my entire life. So to say that I'm upset, of course I'm upset. A lot of people are getting, jerked around over things after they've already lost everything. They're now being told that I was just talking to a gentleman here who he lives off the island. It's a much probably smaller scale insurance wise than what we're dealing here, but it's again, all relative. This storm didn't care how much money you had. And he was telling me how his insurance was $800 a year. And he got a message from an insurance company that they're dropping him. He never even made a claim, but they're dropping him
because they don't want to be around here.
So he said, he tried looking at, and they referred him to other ones. And he said his insurance company told him that because he's now located in Lee County, it's a high risk area, and it went from $800 a year to $2,400 a year.
Crazy.
So
crazy.
The dollar amount isn't the important part; it's the scalability or the factor of the dollar amount. I heard from a condo association on the south end that I think they said their insurance was $67,000 a year, and their new quote was $740,000 or $760,000 a year.
How do you pay that without? I mean, it's just absurd.
It's robbery. It's robbery. And at the end of the day, some of these people are paying $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year in insurance, and they can only get back $250,000.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I think what it's done is it's enticed people to self-insure. I mean, why, if you make it 5 years without a storm, you're breaking even and not having to deal with the headache.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the right message to get out.
No, you did like, I don't know how many TV shots you did today. It's the Weather Channel, and Fox was here and Wink was here, and all the TV stations are here today because it's the 6 month. Mm-hmm. I don't like to use the word anniversary. It's the 6 month mark of the storm. Do people pay enough attention to what's going on here on a regular basis?
Yeah. I mean, I think at least a couple times a week, people reach out to, ask comments and how things are going. And, we got a thing on Friday now we call Fact or Fiction. It is a coconut telegraph. So sometimes things get blown out of proportion. And, people will ask questions about things. The street signs, for instance, they thought the town hated them and we wanted to tear them down. So you have to straighten those things out. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's almost a full-time job in itself, trying to correct the errors that are getting spread out there. Some have legitimate legs behind it, but I would say most of them don't.
Okay. So you think that we're getting enough national attention to keep the spotlight on here to help with the rebuild?
Well, I mean, I think that the national attention has kind of died down with, the devastating storm that just hit Mississippi and those people that lost their lives there. And the news cycle moves on. I'm always kind of been a positive person. And I think now if we can get the news coverage to be about positivity, about our rebuild, about what we're doing, how we can show people that we've been resilient and, Loyola, thinking outside the box and bucking the system, if you will, to make things open up again and try to create some sort of normalcy for people that have been coming here, the poinsettia tree, things like that. Mm-hmm. I think as long as we can keep doing positive things, we'll be able to stay in the, I've never been really a Debbie Downer. I like to try to move forward. So the more positivity we can show, I think the more we can stay in that national news cycle. And eventually, we'll come to the 1 year anniversary, if you will, and we'll have to talk about it again. But I'm about moving forward and being proactive and not trying to be reactive. But, I don't know that our job is to keep dwelling on the past. We need to show the national news how we can be the catalyst. We can be for the next storm that we know will come and hit some barrier island somewhere. This is what we did, and this is what we learned from that. We wish we would have done better, and hopefully they can take that and the recovery will be much faster for the next people that have to go through this.
So one of the questions that I asked Joe when he was on earlier is what he thinks might be the first new piece of commercial construction on the island. And do you have any insight to something that the folks on the island will see start to rebuild in a spot that has nothing there now? Anything you can share with the folks?
No, I mean, I've met with quite a few people that have been on the island a long time that want to build back for what they had, or maybe change it a little bit. So obviously they're concerned about the density talks and the things that we've been going through. I think the first ones that you're going to see are the ones that can build back by right with a development order and not have to go through the special exception process or the variance process. The people that can do that on whatever property they may own, I think you're going to see them come out of the ground the fastest. I mean, we're fortunate that we have Margaritaville that's going to hopefully open in the fall.
Mhm.
That'll be the first big thing open back up. Pink Shell's been doing a great job getting back open. Diamond Head's been working their tails off to get back open. Leaky Tiki, or not Leaky Tiki, but the Tiki behind us is Lighthouse has been working hard to get open. So, the pillars of the islands are really working to get it back open and try to get us back to normal as fast as we can. I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you, what was going to come out of the ground first, but I think the ones that can work within the development with a development order within the rights that they have, I think you'll see them come out the fastest.
Now, Jim wants to know if you can tell us what your understanding of the progress on the canal cleanup is. Lots of residents are asking about the timing of the debris removal and the dredging in the canals.
So I think when Director Guthrie and and Governor DeSantis were here in Fort Myers a week or two ago, I think I remember him saying that he thought it was about 84% complete in the canals. I think that's the number he used. Don't quote me on it, but I think that's what I remember hearing him saying. You see him going on those barges every single day. They're hauling it down to the Mosquito Control Board property to unload it, and then they take it off the south end of the island and get rid of it. So they're moving as fast as they can. We'll be finding stuff, I'm sure, in the canals for years.
Yeah.
As far as the dredging, we're still working on that. That normally, I know that the director did say at one of our town hall meetings that we had applied for the dredging. We haven't gotten any updates on who's going to do that or how that's going to get done, but that's a very important conversation. Austin's been out looking at, all the canals and taking depths and finding where the problems are getting in and out of the canals from the back bay. So still collecting data to figure out which ones are the worst to try to get started on first.
And of course, nothing can be easy down here. You've got some emergency sand that's being spread out to start the process that leads up to the bigger beach renourishment. But in about 3 or 4 weeks, you also got, or May 20th, you have turtle season. So that's going to kind of butt heads and make it a little bit harder. But so what can you give an update on as far as the renourishing the sand is?
Well, the normal renourishment is still on schedule, but the beach berm obviously got pushed back a little bit, which is going to push us into turtle season. The consultant is already working with staff and the contractor to make sure that we're working in compliance with the turtle season and what they have to do. So these are well-educated people that understand. You've heard Mike talk.
Yeah,
he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. So they've already got they had a contingency plan in place should it go over into turtle season. So now it's just a matter of implementing that plan.
What do you want to tell the people about rebuilding Fort Myers Beach? About how do you think it's going and what you think you're going to see over the next few years?
Well, I think you're going to see some properties. I was just talking about, speaking of Zillow. I can't believe you never heard of Zillow, but I don't know why that shocks me.
There's a lot of things I haven't heard of, Dan. I don't get out a lot.
I mean, you just finally caught up to Jim with a 4K camera, so I guess I shouldn't be shocked. But I think we were talking about Zillow, and before the storm, I remember seeing on Zillow there's a few red dots here or there, and now you go to Zillow. I went there this morning. There's a lot of red dots. So I think you're going to see a lot of properties changing hands potentially. There's a lot of people. I think the average age in the island was 65 before the storm. There's some people that don't want to wait to go through the rebuild process and they're moving on, and it's sad and it's unfortunate, but it's going to create an opportunity for new people to come in and be part of the community. And I think that's what you're going to see. We're definitely going to see some changes to the building. I think people have understood that. We might see some buildings that are taller and they may look a little different on the outside, but as long as we can keep that culture inside the building, I keep saying it, is the people that are inside the building. One of the things that I really loved about this island when I first came here is it reminded me of a small town in Minnesota. It's just, you could sit down at a place like La Ola and you didn't know if you were sitting next to a millionaire or a farmer or a guy that worked at a farm. Nobody wore their wealth on their sleeves. They were just here to have a good time. But when times got tough, everyone around that table, no matter who they were, would get together and help, whether it's the women's club, community foundation, whoever needed help, they would gather together and they would make that happen. And that's the culture of Fort Myers Beach. And that's what makes us unique. And despite what the buildings may or may not look like, as long as we can keep that vibe and keep that. And I think people understand nationally, you know, more people I talk to, they understand that this has always been a fun, eclectic, funky island, and people band together when it's time, even if you don't disagree. Even if you disagree, sometimes you put that aside, especially in times like this, and you work together, help your neighbor, and you get it in, and then you get to sit around and listen to some music and have a cold beer or something. And I think that's, as long as we can keep that mentality, to me, what color the building is, or the fact it's got 5 windows instead of 6.
Yeah. I won't hold you to this. Of course, it's just a crapshoot answer. But if you were to take a guess about how many people that were living on the island before the storm will actually be living on the island after the storm.
Yeah,
that same group of people.
Do
you hear a lot of people that are moving on?
I mean, I've heard more people say they're staying than leaving, which is very encouraging. You know, we obviously lost a few people in the storm that are never going to be able to come back, and it's just going to depend. You know, it's going to be very expensive to be here. You know, with insurance, going back to insurance, and I really don't know. You know, a lot of people that have been here for 30, 40. I've been here for decades, and you know, they retired down here and bought a nice little cottage, and now the cottage is gone, and some people see an opportunity that they can make more money than they probably ever made in their life, and move someplace and start again. And those are the ones that you really hate to see go. But we got a lot of fighters here. There's a lot of people that I think now have gotten over that grieving and have gotten over that, you know, feel like they lost everything. I think that they're getting their feet back under them. They're building up that strength again to say, you know, that's all you got. You know, we could take it. We'll keep moving forward.
There's another TV truck here. Is that for you, or is that for Lalo?
No, they're probably they're probably here to educate you on Zillow.
Oh, that's nice. Encourage them to take shots at me. It's just like being at home. So one of the first people I asked to come on this show 3-4 weeks ago, when I was starting to put it together, was Fire Chief Ron Martin, and it wasn't that long ago. It was 2 weeks ago, and I sent him a text, and we were going back and forth, and he said, I'm going to be out of town, but I could do it remotely. And then the next day he resigned. He didn't say anything the day before that he was going to resign, or something happened that made him resign the next day. And back when the storm first hit, we spent a lot of time communicating, because he was one of the few people at the time that wanted to get information out. Mm-hmm. We talk every night about what's going on. And at the time they had closed the beach down so they could search for people. They were still doing a search and rescue at the time. And he was such a great communicator with the community. And he so loves this community. He's been here for so long. And it was just great working with him. How is he doing?
You know, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. It certainly caught me by surprise, and everyone I've talked to caught them by surprise as well. You know, he and I worked very closely together after the storm. You know, I know it was very difficult for him having to work, you know, with the town right after the storm. It was very difficult for him getting answers and just, you know, he had a job to do. His job was search and rescue. And I think he and his team and the USAR teams that were here did a phenomenal job, all in the face of people wanting to get back on the island. They want to get back to their property, and having to tell them, you know, we're searching for people that are missing. We're still searching with these dogs. And, you know, I couldn't imagine what that stress would be like. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that had anything to do with why he decided to resign. I haven't had a chance to talk to him to find out. You know, he cited personal reasons, and it you know, sure. I wish him the best of luck. I hated to see him go. He and I have always communicated very well. When I took over as mayor and sat in, he and I would work side by side, you know, trying to figure out, this is what we learned from FEMA this week. And we worked really well together, and I was sad to see the news, but you know, I hope whatever the reason is that he comes out better.
Now, you guys have two, I think, great town managers right now. They're co-town managers. They're on a 6-month contract. On Monday, you have 5 finalists that are going to be considered for the next town manager job, which will be to rebuild this island. I mean, do you think the town is ready for more change, or would you prefer that Keith and Chris stayed on longer and continued? These guys are experts in stuff like this. They've been through it in communities in Florida like this. And I'm not saying that somebody new that might come before you on Monday doesn't have that experience, but does the town need more change right now?
Well, I think what's important is that they've committed, and I think Keith has said it on your show, and he's committed to helping out as long as we need his help. You know, when the new transition comes in, he and Chris have offered to help. You know, they're both retired guys, so the fact that they were able to come out and we were able to get two for the price of one, essentially, to be able to help us. They're both very different guys. They both have very good strengths in different areas, and they complement each other very well. We're extremely fortunate to have that combination. I can't speak to whether they decide they want to put their resume in and try to go for the job as well, but I think they've done the town a very, very good job. They've done a very good job for the town. Like you said, their experience, they're very good at team building. I think they've got a culture that they started with direction, I think, from council, that they understand what the culture is. You see them out at events like this all the time. They like to be part of the community. I think the community likes that. They're approachable, you know, and I think whether it's them or whether it's a new candidate, I think that's a very key thing, that they have to be approachable. They have to be community orientated. They have to be able to work hard, because there's going to be a lot of hard work. And you know, they've got a very determined council that is pushing very hard to change the culture the way it was over the past. And I think that they understand that. I'm sure most people are probably paying attention to this. If I was going to be taking a job somewhere, I'd try to get all the information I could ahead of time.
And I think that we've been kind of spoiled since they've been around, because they are such good communicators, and we were so not used to that communication level before they came on board, with you too, and Jim, and just the change in the communication. And the worst, this is obviously, there's some personal reasons for this too, because I love being able to communicate with the town so easily. The last thing the town needs is that to go back to the way it was.
Yeah, I think that'd be, well, I don't see that happening, for one. I mean, communication is free. It's the easiest thing to do. And, you know, people may not like your answer all the time, but as long as you're giving them an answer, that's better than no answer at all, or hiding in a closet. So as long as you do that, you know, people, they may not agree with it. They may argue back with you, but at the end of the day, they'll understand it and they'll move on.
Yeah.
Well, and if you need to change something, you can change something. But if you're not willing to talk to people, you know, no one in the room is the smartest person in the room. I've always felt that way. So if there's a problem, the more people you can get talking about it, I think the better solution you get out of it.
For somebody who is asking, who are the 5 candidates? The town posts their agenda on Wednesday on their website, and the 5 resumes of the 5 finalists will be attached to the agenda. And you can also go on Monday. They're having donuts and coffee with the 5 candidates, and you're all willing to, or welcome to go to Town Hall, which is at Diamond Head, and have coffee and donuts with the 5 candidates and talk to them yourselves. It's 1 hour, 8 to 9, and then you guys will have a meeting, a regular town council meeting, and you'll rank them from there. Interview and rank them.
Well, we get our one-on-one interview with them each, and then they'll be able to come up, and then there's the public interview process. After that, we'll have a public comment segment there, which we normally don't have, just to get feedback from people that did take the time to go and talk with these candidates and offer their feedback. Because at the end of the day, we all work for the residents, so they should be able to have a say in it. So so we'll have that public comment. Then we'll rank them. The council will rank them, and the person that's ranked the best will enter into negotiations with the attorney. So
it's automatic that one of these 5 will be the next town manager. Is that automatic?
I wouldn't say it's automatic. No, I mean, we've no council member. I don't even know who the people are. I have no idea. I just know the numbers of people they said have applied.
There are like 80 applications for this job.
Yeah, there was over, and I think, you know, we've entrusted our HR person as well as our 2 town managers to vet the process. As you said, they've got a wealth of experience. They know what this, they've been here long enough. They understand the culture of the town. They understand the community. I think they understand what the drive is for the council. I think that they'll pick best candidates, but nothing is guaranteed. I mean, it could be that the council doesn't like any of them.
But, well, how do you rank? You give them all zeros. Is that how you rank some? I mean, somebody's going to get a 5 or a 4.
I've never been through this process, so I guess we'll figure it out. But.
So let's say Keith comes back from vacation. He's on vacation this weekend. He decides that he wants to be considered for the job. Does now he get into the audience and he becomes one of the 6 candidates, or he gets an extra donut at 8 o'clock and everybody gets to chat with him too? I mean, What if he decides to be the sixth candidate? Is that how that works, or this is all?
A good question. I guess I haven't asked that question,
see.
but obviously, I think Keith and Chris are doing a great job, and through the whole process, I think they've been asked by several people throughout the community to consider staying on and putting their application in, and I know Keith is considering it. Obviously his wife, he's got a place and a life up in the Panhandle, so he's got to work through that. And if he decides to apply, it'd certainly be welcome. If he doesn't, we're glad that we have him here to assist us in the change whenever that happens with the new town manager. I think we're in a fortunate spot to be able to have as many people that care. The good thing about Keith and Chris is that this isn't just a job for them. You could truly tell that they love being involved with building something and building back a community, and they've really gotten attached to people in the community. So we've been very fortunate.
So folks, if you're listening or watching here, Keith's email address is townmanager@fmbgov.com. I would encourage you all to send him an email asking him to stay. If you're watching, or if you're out here and you can write it, or get on your phone right now and say, I mean, you're just taking my word for it, right? Because you've only seen him maybe out at an event or at a town council meeting where he's not ego driven and he has to be the center of attention the whole time. He's there answering questions and everything. It's town manager at FM. Now he's not going to get any. You watch what happens with the.
I guess we'll find out your poll.
How much jack I have, which is 0. But I have nothing against any of the other candidates. I just think when things are running smoothly, why rock the boat?
Well, I mean, the decision's in his hands.
Yeah.
It's listed as open until filled. So
yeah,
it could be filled on as soon as Monday. It could not.
Now, how many years do you have left in your term?
2024. November 2024.
So you have to run again if you decide you're going to run again. It has to be in 2024.
Yep. Yeah, because the last election previous to this one in November, the referendum was in there, and we now align with the national.
Do you want to announce today that you're running again?
Yeah. Sure.
There's no way.
Yeah, it's true. That's true, John. Actually, Jim, Bill, and I will be the longest running council members.
Yeah.
Or sitting council members in Fort Myers Beach history.
Because of the 4 years. So, John, please.
John, why do you got to bring up my
John, this is my show. So there's no way you're not running. I mean, you're just in the middle of this. So no comment. I almost got him to squeeze it out there. So what keeps you up at night?
What doesn't? You're living in a camper with a dog and a cat that hate each other. And they evidently, as we're out trying to do the things we're trying to do during the day, that's when they get their napping. And so, throughout the night, it's they got a love-hate relationship. The dog is so dumb. He hasn't figured out that the
stick to the question, Dan. We're not talking about pets. What keeps you up at night?
Well, you asked me. That's the number one thing.
The dog.
No, everything keeps me up at night. I probably overthink more things than I should, and I'm a fixer. I like to try to fix things and try to make things right. So if something comes up during the day that is become a problem, it keeps me up at night until I can can't fix everything, but everything. Everything keeps.
We got people watching already that want to know where they can make political contributions to your campaign already. So, any final piece of advice before we let you go to the people out there that are going through what they're going through?
No, just keep your head up. I know there's we all have days where we get down, where you just feel like everything is going against you, and the best thing you can do is go home, hug your husband and your wife, pet your dog, try to find your cat, and get through it, sit outside, have I never thought I would be a camper, and you make the most of it. You sit out there, and when the burning ban is off, you can have we've had a fire pit. I've never had a fire pit at our house since till now.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't do it now, but when we are able to do it, it just find what makes you happy, find what makes you relax. We're fortunate enough that we still have the Gulf of Mexico. Go out and watch a sunset. Go up to the top of the bridge and watch the sunrise, and don't let the day define you. Define your day.
Dan Allers, everybody, the mayor of Fort Myers Beach. Thank you so much, Dan. And I think I screwed up the Kevin Guthrie thing, so I'm going to have to try and make good on that. I think I sent him the wrong link. I'm still a rookie at this. I'm still learning. Liberty Roofing and Construction is your trusted roofing company, everybody. At some point, you're going to have a house. And the last thing you want is to have a house without a roof because you'll get wet. So you're going to call Liberty Roofing and Construction. They have they say that your roof will be done within 30 days of when your permit is issued. A clean property guarantee, industry-leading workmanship. You receive a free assessment by calling 411 Roofing. Call Patrick McKenna at Liberty Roofing, 401-439-9585. 401-439-9585. Saturday, we want you to tune in to the show at Wahoo Willie's because we're going to have a attorney on. We're going to have a live attorney at Wahoo Willie's to answer your insurance questions, your hurricane questions. It's free advice. And what everybody needs right now is free advice on everything that's going on. It's about 10:47. We're going to take a 15-minute break. And then at 11 o'clock, we're going to have our final segment. We're going to leave the video on. We're not going to turn it off. So we'll be back right at 11 o'clock with our final segment. All right, everybody, welcome back to our final segment of our special 6-month mark show. Not anniversary, it's the 6-month mark of Hurricane Ian. And we're broadcasting live from La Ola in Times Square, where the show started 5 years ago, right up the street from Pete's Timeout. A couple of things I wanted to mention. Heidi wanted me to pass along that Buttonwood is still open. I don't know if anybody knew that, but 820 Buttonwood is still open. It's now called FMB Strong because it's an official 501c3, and they're going to be expanding their hours in April to support the people of Fort Myers Beach. So stay tuned for more information on that. We'll pass that information along as we get it. So 820 Buttonwood is located right over the bridge, and many of you have been there. Many of you have donated to the cause over there, and all that stuff goes right back to the community that you donate. And so we'll keep you in the loop on what's going on there. I want to thank Tom at La Ola for allowing us to sit in his area here and bring the show. Thanks to the mayor who just finished a live shot, another TV live shot. Everybody wants to do a live shot with the pier in the background. I mean, you can't find any other, well, I guess you can find a landmark, but a landmark like that was so iconic to Fort Myers Beach to stand in front of. I don't know what TV station that is. He doesn't seem to have a shirt on, but there are TV stations all over the beach today to mark the 6 months. And we want to invite Karen Payne up to the stage here. Karen is a resident of Fort Myers Beach, and we are also waiting for Cindy. Cindy is, well, let me give you this one. It's got a little longer cord, and you can sit right here. Cindy is caught in traffic. It seems today is a high traffic day out there. Everybody is caught in traffic. And Karen, how are you, first of all?
Doing great.
Get yourself
Thanks for it.
comfortable.
I'm trying to get situated.
Yeah.
Well, I'm challenged vertically.
All right,
I have
don't
little
fall.
short legs. Okay,
All
I'm
right,
good.
there you
I'm
go.
good.
Nice and close with the mic.
I'm
and
good. I'm good. Thanks.
Tell everybody, you've been a resident here for how long and how you came down here and the
Well,
whole
we
thing.
bought, my husband and I bought our beach cottage in 2012.
Okay.
He had been coming here for 20 some years. He plays in the Roy Hobbs baseball tournament every year
Oh,
out here in Lee County. And the guys always stayed on Fort Myers Beach. So 20 some years. And then I eventually started coming with him. And we just considered it our second home. And it just was familiar to us, just the people, the community. And then when we were here in 2012 for the baseball tournament, we had a great idea. Let's look at some properties and signed a contract for this cottage that we had no intention of doing when we came. So that was a little crazy. And but we knew we were retiring in 2017. So we rented it out for the next 5 years and
Where was
came here for vacation right next to Publix.
okay.
Right now, there's 4 empty lots there, and ours was one of them.
Okay. On Estero Boulevard,
On
those 4
Estero.
lots on the other side of the fence.
Right. So on the same side of the street as Publix, there are 4 empty lots where there used to be 4 houses. And so we purchased that, and then we rented it out. We came for vacation. We retired in 2017 and completely renovated the inside of our home and tore off the siding. My husband did all the siding outside. It's amazing what you can find on YouTube. You can do yourself. And, said, we're going to live here and you'll have to carry. People would say, oh, you could sell your house for so much more money. Why?
Yeah. Right.
You're
right.
going to have to carry me out one day.
That's right.
Maybe many years from now. And so unfortunately, that's not what happened. But so we moved here full time in 2017. So we were in our home for 5 years.
And that's such a great location right there.
Perfect.
Estero Boulevard, you got beach access, you got Publix, you got Santini's not too
When
far.
we purchased it, we didn't even realize what a great location it is. I mean, Mid-Island to me is like the perfect location. You're right in the middle. Publix next door during peak season. We don't have to leave. We don't worry about the traffic. We walk and get our beer and our food. And then we walk across the street to the beach.
Yeah.
And we have our 95-pound dog Dexter that goes out every morning. And
What kind of dog
walks
is
the
it?
beach. He's a mixed breed. We rescued him 5 years ago.
Very cool.
Right after we moved here. So he loves the beach. And as it turned out, he had to swim for his life during Ian. So we know he's very strong. But yeah, so things took a little bit of a turn back.
So
in
tell us
September.
about September 27th, the day before the storm. What were you thinking?
Well, I was getting increasingly scared as they updated the forecast. And my husband, who is just about as laid back, as chill as a person could be, like Fort Myers Beach is perfect for him. He's saying, "Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine." Our cottage was built in 1957. There were hurricanes, there were storms, there was all kinds of weather events here. Never any damage at all, not a speck of damage to our cottage. And so, like many people that made the decision to stay, you know, he said, "Well, we're 13 feet up. Well, I think we'll be okay. We're going to get water." I said, "There's a hurricane coming." He said, "Well, I know that. I know we'll get
Now
some
you guys
water."
are fighting.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
We literally fought for 2 days before the hurricane because I said, "I feel in my gut like I have this feeling we need to go." And he said, "Well, I'm not going." And up until like the night before at 11 o'clock, when I was watching the news, I said, he went to bed and
Yeah.
I said, "I'm going to evacuate. I'm going to South Fort Myers High School."
You said that.
I did. I woke
Yeah.
him up and said, "I got to go." And he said, "I love you. I'll see you tomorrow."
Wow. No, I have a feeling that conversation has happened in many a house between the man and the woman. The man thinking he's
just-
going to stay, and the woman
Right.
being sensible.
It just was, the last thing I wanted to do was separate from my husband during this event, but I just had a sick feeling like never before. And I said, "I just really feel like I need to go." Now, when I left, I took a blanket, a pillow, my ID to get in, and that was it. I mean, I thought I was coming back to my house the next day.
Now this is your full-time home at this point. You don't
Yes.
have a home in where did you come from?
Maryland.
Maryland. So
yeah, our kids
all
are
your
there.
belongings are in this house. Everything you
Everything
own
we
is
own
in
is
that
in the
house.
house,
And your
yep.
husband's in the house the
My
day of the
husband and our
storm.
dog. Yep.
And so the next day when you see what's going on, how do you communicate? Were you still able to talk on the phone?
Yeah, well, what happened? So the next morning, we were FaceTiming back and forth throughout the morning up until 2 o'clock, actually. And very early on, he realized this is not going to be good. This is going to be bad. And by the time he realized this, they were not allowing people. Well, I think once the winds got to 45 miles an hour, I think it is, they weren't allowing people to go across the bridge. And, you know, I said it was a mandatory evacuation. But obviously many people made that decision
Mhm.
based on things that have happened in the past and decided to stay. And he said, "I know it's going to be bad, but you know, at this point, I'm kind of here. I'm hunkering down."
Mhm.
And thank God I evacuated because I took one of our vehicles, which meant we had a vehicle,
Right.
because our other one was in a pile in Publix with a lot of other vehicles.
Yeah. I'm still yet
So-
to find a single vehicle that survived the storm on this island. It was a car cemetery.
Yeah, there was no, I mean, it's, first of all, it's in the water, so you can't do anything with it.
Sure.
If it doesn't look like it's been to a demolition derby, which they all did.
Yeah.
So we were on FaceTime back and forth, and he would go outside and he would show me. And I just was like, I was panicking,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the water was rising so quickly. We lived across the street from Seaside condominiums. And I said to him, "Why don't you go across the street?" Because he said the water's rising rapidly.
Mhm.
And I said, "Why don't you take Dexter and go to Seaside and go up the steps, because you could access the top level with the outdoor steps."
Okay.
And I said, "You'll probably be okay up there. What do I know? I don't know, but at least it's someplace to go."
Higher. Yeah.
So he tried, and we had pool floats that he was like trying to get Dexter in the pool float.
Oh,
and he was
boy.
trying to get across.
And the dog's probably like, "What the hell are you
The
doing?
dog
Put a
was like-
floaty on me for?"
Right. He's like, "What are we doing here?" So they tried to get across Estera Boulevard and they couldn't. The
'Cause of the water.
surge was so
Wow.
strong. Now, if it was just my husband, he would have gotten across. But with trying to keep Dexter and get him across, the dog's 95 pounds, he just couldn't do it. So back to the house he came, and he had a big wooden pallet. He said, "I can use this to float if I need to." Or at one point he tried to get up on the roof, and when he opened our back door to step on the deck to kind of check out the roof situation, the deck had already washed away, but he didn't realize it because the water was high. So he sunk down in and he got himself back up. But we had a flat roof that was like a slick material. He would have never been able to
Stay. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's nothing to hold on to. So he kept FaceTiming back and forth. The last time I talked to him was around 2 o'clock. And I could hear like loud noises. And I kept saying, "What is that noise?" And he said, "Well, it's the house moving." Like you could hear, it's all wood. It's a wood cottage. And you could hear it creaking and moving. And he said, "The house is moving." And I said, "Okay. Don't you think it's time that you need to like get out of the house?" So the water was probably 1 or 2 feet up in the house. It came up through the vents in the floor. And he said, "Okay, I have to go." He packed his phone into a Ziploc bag and a change of clothes, and he put it in a Turtle Time backpack because he volunteers for Turtle Time.
Okay.
And he went with his shorts and no shirt and his water shoes, and he went to open the front door, and the house at that time had moved and gotten swept away, and he didn't realize it.
Wow.
So when he thought he was going to be looking at Estero Boulevard, he was actually looking at our neighbor's roof who lived behind us. So the house turned around completely and drifted into our neighbor's house behind us, crashed into it. And unfortunately, most of the damage of his home is from our home hitting it. So when he opened the door, there was his roof in front of him. So that was a miracle. And to me, there's many miracles in the story. So how do you open your door and there's like a roof in front of you to
Right.
say, just climb on this roof? So he went to lift Dexter onto the roof, and Dexter got very panicky.
Sure.
And tried to jump behind him and missed and ended up in the water, in the surge. So now Dexter, in 2 seconds, my husband said, I've never seen anything like it in my life. Like, of course, the whole thing, you've never seen anything like it. But in 2 seconds, he was like so far away. He was like a black speck. And he said, okay, I have to go get him. Well, Dexter turned around and saw him, and he was like, oh no, I'm not here and you're there. And that dog, now he would come out to the beach every day and get in the Gulf, but he would get cooled off. He was never like a big swimmer. That dog literally swam for his life. He started going with his paws, and my husband said, I don't know how long it took. It took forever, but he swam against the surge. Like, people can't even swim against the surge. So he swam back to Joe, and he reached down and grabbed his harness, because now he's on the roof, and pulled him up onto my neighbor's roof. Now, my
Wow.
neighbor's roof is peaked, and it has shingles. So he put Dexter down on the roof, and he just laid like this on top of him for 4 hours during the worst part, from like 2:30 until 6:30, during the worst part. And the storm was just kind of hovering and just like beating the heck out of everything. And he said, well, I asked the angels to surround me with white light, and they did. I said to myself, okay, one moment, please. I said I wasn't going to do this, but anyway. So the tin roofs are tearing. He can hear it. He can hear everything tearing, and it's literally flying all around him, and nothing touches this man. Nothing. 4 hours. And I said to him, thank God I left, because there is not a chance on this universe that I would have been able to do what he did.
And
So he did this, and he literally waited until the storm moved on. And as quickly as the water came, it started receding.
No kidding.
And he said, okay, I have to get down off of this roof. So he waited until it got to about 3 feet. He couldn't jump in sooner than that. It was still too turbulent. There was too much of a surge. So when it got to about 3 feet, he said, well, I take a chance and I jump, because you don't know what kind of crap is in there.
Sure.
Muck, whatever. So he jumps in. And in the meantime, I forgot the part of the story, a neighbor across the street, they had decided to stay in their home. Many people had decided to stay, obviously.
Right.
They were 16 feet. They were 18 feet up off the ground. And they knew that because they just had an insurance adjuster out there measuring. So they see Joe, and they're waving to him to let him know that I see you, and we're going to watch you. And they had a generator, they had water, they had food, and they just watched the whole 4 hours he was over there.
Wow.
And when it started receding and he got in the water, well, he jumped in first, because he doesn't go anywhere without Dexter. Dexter would never allow him to go anywhere without him. So he jumps in and he's going, come on, let's go. And Dexter looked at him like, are you crazy? Like, I just like swam in this surge. Like, you think I'm going to jump in that water? And he just wouldn't. Like, he kept going to the edge and going back and going to the edge, and he just couldn't do it. So then Joe had to climb back on top of the roof,
Yeah.
throw Dexter in. And then they went across the street to her neighbor's house, who brought him in. They gave him food. They gave him shelter. They gave him a bed to sleep in that
Now,
night.
did those people watch the entire incident? Were they able to see what he was going through from the
Mhm,
beginning? And but there was nothing they could do.
Nothing. There's no way you can get out in that surge. I mean, people tried and weren't very successful. Some people were able to manage the surge, but he, thank goodness he was never actually in the water. I mean, he opened the door and there was a roof there to climb onto.
Yeah.
But they knew that eventually, hopefully, he could get down and come across to their house. And I had lost contact with him. 5 o'clock, I think, was the last. I had no Wi-Fi, no cell. Obviously, nobody did. So I had no idea what happened. There were sheriff's deputies at the high school. Everybody was talking about Fort Myers Beach is decimated. It's gone. And
Mhm.
I was devastated and heartbroken because I'm thinking there's no way they made it through this.
Right.
And it wasn't until 10 o'clock that night that I knew that they had made it. I was
How?
sure.
How'd you find out?
Okay, this is another
Crazy story.
yeah, it is. It's like one miracle after the other. So we have 4 children in Maryland. I had talked to them about 4:30. I was trying to hold off so I could tell them that he was safe, and I wasn't able to do that. I said, the house is gone and I don't know where Daddy is. What do you mean? Well, I don't how else to say it. So about 6:30, he's now inside Mary's house. So 2 hours later, and he says to her, I have to get in touch with my wife. And she said, well, there's no calls going back and forth. They tried calling me. It didn't go through.
Mhm.
And for some reason, he said, well, let me try one of my kids. And I don't know why the call went through, but they tried and tried and tried. And he connected with our son.
Wow.
And he said, look, I just want to let you guys know I'm okay. I desperately need to get in touch with Mom. And they all knew where I was, but nobody could get in touch with me. And so anyway, I had created a group text with my 4 kids and that we were communicating. So my youngest daughter tried calling her dad because now they had the phone number where he was because he had gotten through to them. And she tried for 3 hours straight to call him, just repeatedly hitting redial. Finally, the call went through and she said, can I speak with my dad? This is one of his daughters. And she said, I'll go wake him up. He was sound asleep. He was very dazed and confused for a long time
Sure.
after that, throughout the night. And so she was trying to piece together the story that he told her. So she wanted to update her siblings. So on this group text message, she left this long message. I talked to Dad. He's very confused, but I think this is what happened. He's at Mary's house. He was on Dave's roof. He's okay. And all of a sudden she sends it and my phone dings. And I'm in the corner on the floor in the high school under the blanket because I can't see or talk to anybody. I'm sobbing. And it dings and I go, oh my gosh, was that my phone? So I go to my phone and I look and I scroll through and I see words like, Dad's okay. He's at Mary's. I'm going, who's Mary? I don't know Mary. He was on Dave's roof. He's okay. Dexter's okay. And I just literally fell to the ground. Just, are you kidding me? And then I try to respond to the message. It won't go through.
Oh, God, torture.
I try to make a call. It won't go through. So it's a miracle that message came through.
Yeah.
But it came through to let me know he's okay.
Uh-huh.
Now, tomorrow, you need to go find him. And that was a whole nother
Oh,
thing. But
yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I found him and
How'd you get over there?
I got in my car. They were trying to talk people into staying. They really didn't want people to leave. They said, there's no electricity, there's
Sure.
no water, there's no communication. They said you can't get through on the streets. But I said, I need to go get my husband. They said, you can't come back in. I said, that's okay. I have a vehicle. I got to go find my husband. So I got in my Explorer and I headed over, and it was early. It was like 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And I just, even though what happens, you're driving through it and you're thinking,
Well, you're not getting over here in the car though, right?
I did. I sure did.
How did you get over in
Well,
the car?
kind of like Mario Kart type
But there
thing,
was full of
it's-
sand, right?
Well, I got to the front of Lonnie Cott.
Okay.
And just going through the streets was very it looked like a movie scene that was staged or something surreal, like fake,
Mm-hmm.
because these things don't belong here,
Right.
especially closer to the beach with all the boats
Yep.
that were stacked on top of cars and in the middle of the street. But when I got over here, I was shocked. I said, why in the world are they letting people over the bridge?
Yeah.
But nobody had been out here yet.
There were no rules. Nobody knew
There
what
was
to follow.
nothing.
No, I mean,
I did the right thing as a
Had your
resident.
purple
I
tag.
put my little
Yeah.
tag on the thing and maybe they'll let me through. Everybody was coming across. So I came across and I said, well, he's walking. Oh, because when we spoke the day before, he said, when the storm is over, I'm going to walk over the bridge and there's a little parking lot on the other side.
Sure.
He said, just pick me up there. I said, okay. So we made a little plan. So I said, I'm going to go to the parking lot and hopefully he's going to walk there. I didn't know where he was or whatever. So I'm driving through And there was a man that was stranded almost in front of the Walmart up here. And he was on the opposite side and his car was turned the wrong way. And he was just sitting on the medium strip. And I felt bad for him. I'm like, well, let me see if I can help him somehow.
Oh gosh, you
I
didn't
felt
have enough
bad.
going on.
Right. So I pull over and I go, I'm really sorry. My phone's not working. He's like, yeah, nobody's phone. I said, but can I take you, drop you off somewhere? I felt bad. He was sitting there. I see you're stranded. And he was like, well, no, thank you for stopping and asking, but there's a tow truck coming. I said, how in the world did you call a tow truck?
Right.
And he said, well, Walmart and Publix, somehow their Wi-Fi is still working in the parking lot, which I would have never thought to
Sure.
check. So I said, that's brilliant. I said, are you sure I can't help you? He said, no, but thank you for stopping and asking me. I appreciate that. But the reason why I stopped was because I would have never thought to go into Walmart parking lot. I pull in Walmart parking lot and there's piles of cars all over the place.
Yeah.
But there's
People
also
thought their cars were going to be safe there.
right. But that people are pulled in. And as soon as I pull in and it connects to the Wi-Fi, my phone goes beep, 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 beep. You know, I'm getting all these messages and it's going crazy. And I thought, okay, this is good. Let me try to get in touch with Mary, who I've never met before, but that's where Joe is.
I see.
And I say, hi, this is Karen, Joe's wife. Thank you for saving his life. Can you tell him I'm coming to get him? And she said, okay. He said, he'll be there in about an hour. It'll take him about an hour to walk. It's about 3 miles, but we know there's houses and stuff in the middle of the street.
Yep.
So I say, okay. So I come across, and when I realized I could get across the bridge, I thought, well, I'll save him some walking time. I'll go as far as I can down Estero, which wasn't far. I came down here just, I mean,
Yeah.
you
Those first
can't-
few days
you
were.
know, you can't describe it. But what was so disappointing was the number of people that didn't belong over here.
Yeah.
That were,
Taking
hey,
pictures.
we survived the hur-" and you know, it was just like it was heartbreaking because I'm like, people are literally days confused, lost, lives lost, homes lost, and you're
Yep.
over here having a party, right? So I sat in front of Lonnie Kai. I'm like, okay, he'll be walking up this way. I can't miss him. It's the only way off the island. So I sat and I waited an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I was like, okay, something has happened. And I'm watching all this craziness happen at the same time. And I decided now, if he couldn't get through Estero to walk down here because there's too much stuff, what would he do? And I thought, well, what he did every day is he walked out to the beach and he walked down the beach
Mhm.
every single morning, first thing. So sure enough, that's what he did.
And you missed him.
He walked up the beach and he crossed through Lonnie Kai parking lot
Oh, jeez.
right behind where I was sitting. So now he's on the other side of the bridge going, where is she?
Oh, boy.
And I'm over here going, where is he?
Yeah.
So I go across the bridge and I go in the parking lot, which was just full of muck.
Yeah.
And I come back out and I go, okay, maybe something happened to him. Maybe he turned around. I'm going to go back to Walmart, steal their Wi-Fi again, and ask Mary, is he at your house? And so I pull out onto San Carlos and I start pulling out, and over on the sidewalk by the gas station, he's standing there with Dexter. We're here, and I was the
How was-
second time that I completely lost it.
What was that hug like?
I was a mess. I stopped in the middle of the road. I'm like, get in this car.
Now you're back to fighting already.
And all the wives, and I said to him on the phone, if you survive this, I'm going to kill you. Right? Get in the car. And so he goes, no, you really need to pull over in the parking lot because I know you need a moment. So I did. I pulled in the parking lot and I got out. And I must have said 20 times, I thought you were dead. I thought you were dead. I thought you were dead.
Wow.
And he said, well, what do we do now? And I said, well, he said, let's get a hotel. I said, there's no power. There's no water. There's no electric. There's nothing. We can't even communicate with our family.
Mm.
The only thing we can do is drive to Maryland and don't stop till you get there. We left for Maryland 17 hours straight through, never stopped.
Wow.
Just drove straight through to our kids. And, you know, we're fortunate that we have family and
Mhm.
kids and resources. I say to people all the time, we're lucky. People think that's crazy, but there's people that don't have resources. They don't have a vehicle. We had a vehicle. They don't have family.
Yeah.
They don't have anybody to rely on. And we just have been surrounded by nothing but great people.
How many times did your kids slap the dad in the head when they finally met him back in Maryland for the first time since the
I know.
storm?
I mean, he says now, he's like, it was crazy. Of course,
Yeah.
I would never do that again, but you just never in a million years
Right.
imagine what's going to happen.
Right. It was that
you know?
false sense of security that everybody talks about from the last storm when they said there was going to
Right.
be storm surge. And you never believe the force of the water, I guess, until you're experiencing
Right.
what that crazy storm surge can do to structures
Exactly.
and buildings and things like
And
that.
we
Now,
moved here right after Irma. So Irma happened and we were moving the following month. And of course, Irma was supposed to be a big event and storm surge. And
yeah.
although it was, not great, it still was
Right.
not
Didn't
what
compare.
they- right.
Didn't compare.
Right.
So you go back, you get settled up with your family, and then at some point you come back to your
Right. We
property.
had to come back.
Yeah.
I got in the car and he said to me, I know you don't want to come back. And I said, are you kidding me? Of course I want to come back. Like I had told God the day before, if everything is gone, my home, my husband, my dog, I'm leaving and never coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But if he is still here, this is where we belong. And we love this community.
Mm-hmm.
And we fully intended on rebuilding. And, it took us a couple of months. We came back, we met with people we need to meet with, meetings, phone calls, really, really, really wanted to rebuild. And, everybody has to make their own decision.
Right. Well, you're already gone. You've already gone through an emotional roller coaster trying to figure out if your husband's alive. You get through that. I shouldn't even say you get through that. You get past that.
Right.
You come back for the first time. And again, I said this earlier, that it almost feels like prying when you ask this question, but you're standing in front of what used to be your dream house and everything you own is in it, and it's not there.
It's not there.
What is that like?
It was, it was so surreal. The pilings were still there. Somehow the appliances decided to have a party on our property because we had like 6 washer and dryers that landed on our property. I'm like, I don't know where they all came from. I don't even know if one of them was mine.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about it. And when we noticed that our house was where it was, we went over, and because it was wood, it just fell into, like, it literally just collapsed. So it wasn't like you could go in and retrieve things because it was just everything collapsed into it. But we tried to get a few things here and there. And each time we went back, we would try to find a few little things. And we did. This locket has my parents' ashes in it.
You found that?
My husband found it under a whole pile of debris.
Crazy.
Now, right. I mean, that's another miracle.
Your house isn't even in the same spot,
No,
but your husband
it's
found that.
completely, and it's got muck and there's just piles of debris. I brought these letters. So my husband was in the Marine Corps and we started dating a long time ago. And he wrote me these 22 letters when he was in boot camp.
Cool.
I was still in high school, but I kept them, and there's a stack of them, and I tied like a shoestring.
Shoelace?
Shoestring. And I kept it in my bedside table in my bedroom. And once in a while we would take them out and read them, and hysterical because you read letters you wrote when you were teenagers. I mean, it gives you a good laugh. But I saved them all those years, and I got a message from a woman I had never met who lived several streets away, and she found me on Facebook and
Wow.
said, I found this pile of letters, and I'm not sure if they're yours, but they're from the service. And I thought to myself, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, it was like 3 days after the hurricane.
Sure.
And my daughter goes, Mom, those are the letters Dad wrote to you. I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
She found them and saved them for me, and I still have them.
That's
And
crazy.
they're still readable because of how I had them stacked. Like the top one is like, whatever, not good. But all the ones in between, you can still take out and read them and whatever. So we had a few things and I mean, the community has been unbelievable. People reaching out,
Yeah.
wanting to know, is this yours? Is that
Right.
yours? The fact that he found my parents' ashes. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. People are finding things all the time, even up to today, and they're just saving
Right.
them or trying to,
Right.
that's one good
Right.
thing about social media. You can work, if you work at
Absolutely.
it, you can probably find somebody if there's a name or a picture, or,
Right.
and there's so many groups here on the beach that are trying to help
That's
out.
right.
What did you decide to do?
Well, in the meantime, while we were trying to decide, we bought a fifth wheel RV over in Bonita Springs. So we kind of went back and forth, and, we could have stayed there, forever as long as we needed to. But after a couple of months, we made the decision that we were going to have to sell our property and buy another house. And it was not easy. It was not easy. Jorge has our property in his care. But what we said was, we're still going to be close to the beach because we feel like this is our community. So we found a house. Jorge helped us, and we're 5 miles. And it takes us 10 minutes to drive over here, and we
Mhm.
come over all the time. So we wanted to be our biggest thing was we need to be very close to the beach.
Right.
And so we're right off of Summerlin and Winkler. We're very close. We can get here in 10 minutes if the traffic's not bad. And we come over all the time. Joe brings Dexter over. They walk the beach in the morning, just jot right on over and come back. So we found a house that we're settling into, and that'll be our new forever home. And, you know, one day we'll sell our property, and it's not what we wanted to do,
Sure.
but
But
it's
did
the
you find-
decision we had to make.
Did you find out because the reconstruction at your
Just
point?
It's just the cost.
Crazy. Yeah.
I mean, we came here, we knew we wanted to come here and live out our retirement years.
Mhm.
And it was the decision was, quite frankly, yes, we could rebuild. We'd have to go back to work. And so that's why I say everybody's decision is very personal.
True.
People make their own decisions for whatever reason. And we said we want to, you know, be able to still be here and experience this. And so we can't afford to do it and still be retired. So we're still retired. We'll sell our property and sell, you know, pay off this house eventually once the property sells. And we're not in a hurry for it to sell, but there are people that are. Our
Yeah.
neighbor
Yeah.
had just bought her house and has a big mortgage on it that her house floated away too.
Yeah.
And she has to write a mortgage payment every month, and there's no house there.
That's the worst thing
And
in
so
the world.
this is why I'm saying we're more fortunate than other people, because that wasn't our situation. When we moved here, we paid our house off, so we didn't need to worry about that. But you know, everybody's making their own decision. They're doing the best they can. Some people mentally can't go through the process. You know, we're happy being close by
Yeah.
and supporting all the local
Yeah.
businesses.
How is Joe doing?
He's wonderful.
Yeah.
He, you know, he's very strong mentally, spiritually, physically. And if he wasn't, if they ask him questions, but you know, he'll go, you know, it was no big deal. And I go, well, it kind of was.
No, you
No,
just
it
have
was
to be
like no big
standing on
deal.
somebody else's roof through a Category 4 hurricane, but it's just all in a day's work.
I mean, it's crazy,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, this is just how he looks at things. He's like, there's worse things that happen to people. And yes, people, there's a lot of people that are a lot worse off than us. And that's why we continue to say that we came out of this very fortunate, even though we lost our house and everything that was in it.
Okay, that's a great way of looking at things. How's Dexter doing?
Dexter's great.
For
I
not
mean,
afraid of the water?
Well, he hasn't gotten in the pool yet at our house.
Okay.
Which he used to. So I'm not sure. He
Hmm.
was always very attached to us. So it's hard to say if he's being clingy because, you know, he's traumatized. But he was like that before. So he was very attached. So he's doing great. Yeah, he's definitely the survivor. He swam through the surge.
Do you talk to
Yeah.
other people who have had similar stories about what they
Mhm.
went through on the beach? And
Yeah.
is it
Yeah.
like therapy? Does it make, or am I overthinking it there?
No, I mean, it's nice. We got together with a lot of people that we know, obviously, that are, you know, rebuilding. You know, Rick and Amy are two of the people that I
Mhm.
saw the video you put the other day. They stayed in their house. You know, they lost their house. There's a lot of people that we stay connected to. And I think it is therapeutic to kind of talk about what you went through, because you think you went through such a terrible thing until you talk to the next person. And look, it's not like a contest. It was a terrible thing for
Sure.
everybody. You know, even people that don't live here, that come here, that feels like it's their second home. It's a terrible thing, you know? But you just work yourself through it. And, you know, for the first several months, and I don't know when this stopped for me, but every day that I woke up, I would have to go, did we really like lose our house? Like
Right,
it was,
right.
I don't even how to describe it. It was very surreal. And every day that's what I would wake up and think, did that really happen? We're really not like there anymore. And then all of a sudden that stopped.
Mhm.
So I don't even know when that stopped, but I think moving. And so we bought this house. We've been there 3 weeks, and I feel like we're starting to settle into a new reality,
Mhm.
new sense of normal. You know, when we were in the RV, it was like our life before Ian. And now I feel like I'm in limbo, and I feel like I need to get on with my life.
Yeah.
Like, what is it where are we going to land? So once we found the house and once we moved, I feel like, okay, now I know this is how it's
We're gonna
going to
live.
be. And it's our new reality.
Do you feel better living off the beach?
I don't know that I would say better. It's different. If we could have it back and do it again, I would definitely 100% be here. But there's something to be said about being on the other side of the bridge. You know, we wanted to be in this location because we feel like this is home. So all the places we go and what we do is in this area.
Mhm.
So now all of a sudden we're like, oh, it's only 5 minutes from here instead of
Yeah.
whatever.
You know,
Um,
if anybody goes by that, please drive the speed limit if you do. But if you go by the Publix area, that spot that you're talking about is completely bare now. It looks like they've knocked
It's-
down houses on Estero Boulevard, and there are houses behind that. I don't know what the name of that road is, but that the last time I was there, it didn't even look like they were looked
So
at.
right
It was
beside us was Bayland, and then the street next to us, next to that one as well, has a lot of homes that just. I mean, I think we were in a spot that just got
slammed.
Yeah, there were certain sections on the beach you can see
Yeah.
driving up and down that there are still houses standing, and all of a sudden there aren't, and we just got hit. The house next to us went first, which was closer to the ground than we were because we were up higher. But there's 4 of us in a row that just got
Yeah.
wiped out.
Did Joe say how, like, could he see, again, I feel like I'm prying when I ask this, but could he see how forceful the water was coming from the Gulf? Like, was he able to see how
He could,
powerful that storm surge
yeah,
was?
I mean, you could really, and we were on FaceTime and he was showing me, and it was like, it's just the waves, like the force of the waves and how high up they were going
Okay.
was, it was surreal. He said, in my lifetime, I never thought I would see anything like
Yeah.
this or experience anything. And then to have enough force to literally, you know, sweep your house away. It was just, I mean, so thank God he didn't end up in the surge. I think he probably would have been okay, but he didn't have to, you know,
Yeah.
deal with that part. So
Well, thank you so much for telling this story.
yeah, I mean, I feel very much that we're still apart here, even though we live 5 miles away. Here we are most
Well,
of the time.
Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. Karen Payne, everybody. Thank you.
I've got to give you a hug because I see the. Thank you, Ed.
All right, everybody. We were supposed to have Cynthia Danks on, and I think she is stuck in traffic still. The traffic is backed up all the way to Beach Pottery. And that, I don't think I've said that since the last Ali Frazier fight. It's been so long since the traffic was backed up that far. So we will try and have Cynthia on at a different time. And we want to thank you all for tuning in for this marathon 2-hour and 37-minute show. Thank you to all the guests. Thank you to all the sponsors. Thank you to all of you. Thanks for Marie. Thank you to Marie for coming down. And thank you to La Ola for having us here. We'll be back Friday night from Mangarita, Saturday morning from Wahoo Willie's. And have a great day and a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.
The island. They were